Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Good.
So I'm looking forward to this, continuing series because, as we know, as anarchists, that how often they call it the civilization, the birth of civilization.
Right.
Yeah. And generally, it's just like there's already been. We've talked about it before, and even like Uruk, like the last one. There's cities, but a lot of archaeologists or historians will just offhandedly say the one that we're more working on today, Uruk, which we're really going to deal with the Uruk period, the whole area. Uruk was also a city, but right. A lot of them will say it's the first city, which I think is funny since there already is cities.
So, yeah. So how come that could be the first one then?
Or like they call Çatalhöyük, that's definitely earlier. In Turkey, they call that a proto-city.
Okay.
8 to 10,000 people, but it's a proto-city.
Ah.
But anyway, so it just reminds me that it's really complicated for a person not, well-read in archaeology or history, these kind of areas and stuff, to feel like out of sorts. Well, yeah, how it's presented often is kind of, I believe, out of sorts as well.
Right.
So, and so I think that it also depends on, as you know, like we talked about earlier too. I don't think that it's like archaeologists are out there lying or historians are trying to lie. Like which would the people that are,
I hope nobody thinks that we're saying that anyway.
Yeah, well, that's why I try to say it often because I mean, if they, it's not that everyone's going to watch every one of our videos or they may come in halfway, and I don't want that impression to be made at all. I mean, you're a rationalist and a skeptic, and I'm a rationalist who can respect skepticism, but I'm more of a rationalist. But
The point is, though, I want to build my arguments and justifications off of empiricism and reason. Just like, a skeptic, I would believe, should also. I mean, you should be wanting any argument you have. I mean, it's not just blind denialism, skepticism. It should be built off of reason and evidence of why you then either believe things or feel skeptical of things.
Right.
I mean, I would think.
Yeah. Yep.
But like I said, I know I'm a rationalist, so I don't even start with doubt. I start with, what is the presented thing? Do I have reason and good evidence to support this belief?
Right.
Or do I not? And if I don't go, as agnostics sometimes do, well, then we don't know.
I think I was thinking about the way you frame that and the way, like you say, you don't start with doubt. And I think that that's a really fair way to frame it, because I absolutely do start with doubt.
Well, right, and that's what right, and I'm not saying that there's anything in a sense wrong with starting with doubt, as long as you're willing to follow reason and evidence.
Right. Yeah.
To me, I mean, that's why I'm not like anti-skepticism.
Right.
I just don't see a great value in it, because to me, it's limited for a rationalist. It's limited more to a concept, like one statement.
Right.
All things are always open to challenge and revision.
Right. Which falls into rationalism, right? Like,
right.
So, yeah.
But I'm saying, right. That's why I don't really even do skepticism, because any kind of thing would always revert for me back to rationalism.
Right.
And even if I did, like someone before goes, well, you saying you have no skepticism? I never say I'm never a skeptic.
Right.
I'm saying that my skepticism would have been built off of a justification. And the justification as a rationalist must require that it is fucking reasonable to begin with.
Right.
And then I would have to have evidence to support that I'm reasonable.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I think it's also, at least as a modern rationalist, I think it's a dichotomy to say a rationalist is against an empiricist. What? I mean, that's how I do rational arguments.
Yeah, that's right. Those two go hand in hand. You can't say against each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like I would say I'm not against skeptics. If they say a good argument, I'm going to listen because it's reasonable.
Right.
I mean, it's so I just want to clarify that sometimes I say things and I'm thinking in a broader philosophical kind of way.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I've been thinking about the way that, because we've talked about it a few times, and the way that my skepticism really manifests is that initial doubt always whenever somebody says anything. Like, I'm always like, oh, that's bullshit. Except maybe it's not. But that's that's my first reaction. So that's
right. Well, and I'm not saying that sometimes I don't think things are bullshit, but it's generally because I have pre-knowledge. Like if you said the Earth is flat,
well, that's bullshit.
Present some good arguments to prove that thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would be immediately going, no. Just like when someone said to me, science has proved that all reality is false. And I go, would that be a science? But the problem is it's circular. Would that be science that was started in the supposed real world, proving a real thing about the world's not real?
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
If the world's not real, the science isn't real, and neither is the assumptions created from that supposed real world of science.
Yeah. Exactly. Like science is the study of the natural world, right? The real world.
Right. So if the real world's not real, what you could say is it looks like this, appears like this from the real evidence or something, but it's still, it becomes just like I know I talk often very passionate and strong about my beliefs and ideas, but like I told you before, some of the reason why, and I generally try to present them, is because I built them off of strong, sound reason.
Right.
And then I built them off of understanding and evidence. Well, but someone say, well, reason can change. Yes. Sometimes your position will seem extremely reasonable with a limited amount of information. And then with new information, that becomes less reasonable. Yeah, but a rationalist should immediately go, great, I was wrong. Now I'm right because now I know what the right stuff is.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
I think science, to me, does the same thing. It has a thing that can seem extremely correct. And then they go, well, maybe it needs to be adapted or changed or maybe totally, amended. Yeah, I trust science because that reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said before, someone goes, "How can you trust science when it's constantly changing, but religion doesn't change?" I'm like, that's exactly why I trust science and why I do not trust religion claims.
There was a lot of talk about the reason because people lack an understanding of science. That's part of why they were so avid against like the COVID denialism this last few years, is because they saw the science changing in real time, but also through the lens of media. So it's like, oh, well, this week you shouldn't wear masks. Next week you should wear masks. Now vaccines, and it seems like the vaccines are super fast and everything's changing so fast because the information is coming in. And science adapts, but but people aren't used to seeing that in real time.
No, and that's why I said to you before, I have no problem being shown wrong. I think this like some people feel that I'm really arrogant. I am arrogant. If you want to put it in the fact that I make strong claims that I'm kind of sure about because of the epistemic justification, epistemic being in philosophy, that I have evidence to support the justification.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have the evidence and other people do not have any evidence, well, it's very, when they say that one like horse, anti-parasite, ivermectin.
Oh yeah, ivermectin. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. When they say that that's working and there's no evidence of it working, it's easy to put an argument against it, or certainly say that you have not fulfilled the justification, which in axiology thinking, in a sense, it's a faulty presupposition. You've acted as if you know the value of thing that you have no knowledge of.
Right.
So when you say that something is true, you're saying that its value has been received because of a strong justification. But if you have no justification, then you have just claimed a value you actually can't claim.
Right. Yeah.
So like someone before said, oh, we said how people understand what's true. And I'm like, yeah, but true is an assumption we make. It's like a conclusion. Here's this. Then it equals what is true.
Right.
So that's what it should be. Seems like with me that arrogant. So when people say I'm arrogant, a lot of times what I feel is they don't want to be shown wrong such in a way that they feel bad.
Right. Yeah.
Or that they have to change.
Which is sort of fair, right? Like you don't want to you want to be like, hey, you're wrong, but
well, and that's why if you ever seen, even when I tell people I'm wrong on my show, which I have done a lot,
right?
Even people that are scholarly, I don't do it as a form of attack.
Mm-hmm.
I do it as a form. This is the facts. I mean, we have to accept them.
Right.
More of it than trying to make it over people. People still feel I'm arrogant. Oh, well, fine. This is all I have to do is, okay, I'm arrogant. What does it actually mean? What do they mean by this position?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And how does that refute what I'm saying?
It doesn't refute what I'm saying. And not only that, they act as if something's morally wrong with being arrogant. Really what they say is because you're arrogant, it means you could somehow become in error. Yeah, but if I'm not in error, then you're just making a blame, thing against you. You don't like that you were proven wrong.
Yeah. It's pretty. You see it a lot in skeptical circles. The logical fallacies, like it's the ad hominem, right? Like it's it's the attack the person and not the actual argument. So
that's why I always say when they say I'm arrogant, I go, yeah.
I'm like,
okay.
And what does that have to do with what we're talking about?
Is that an ethical violation that I've created? Well, no. Okay. Have I somehow abused someone by being this way? Well, it makes people feel bad. Well, people feel bad at a lot of things I say. People feel bad at the truth. You need to classify why exactly is an issue.
Yeah.
So they say, well, people won't like you. Well, people may not like me anyways.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's definitely an ad hominem, or it's simply just to try to make it something ethical that it's not.
Yeah.
This is a problem in general, pseudo-ethics, that people think some things are ethical.
Right.
I think that you're a correct person because you make correct statements and you desire for justification to be built on reason and evidence, Cory. So if that still ends up that you're ethical but arrogant, then arrogant doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Okay. That's why it doesn't even faze me. They go arrogant. I go, okay. So anyways.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I've been getting called arrogant a lot lately for some reason. Like I never got it for years and years, and then all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, it's been like 10 people called me arrogant. Like,
well, and I saw that, and I saw your comment about reason and evidence. I thought, I'm rubbing off on him. This is a good thing. Yes, you see, because before, I feel like when I first met you, you were kind of hesitant to challenge people's things in a way that would make them feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Which like I said, I'm about kindness. So I don't think that's a bad trait. That's actually a good human trait to have.
Right.
To really care about other people. That's what I said, I really strive, and I don't say that I always achieve it. I really strive to present things in a way that's not attacking people. Mm-hmm. That's why I said, like last week, that I don't go out attacking Democrats, even though I don't agree with a lot of the shit they say. I also don't agree with Trumpers, and I'm not 24 hours a day posting shit about them either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, because my point, like I told you before, is I want to teach. I want to be where people can feel brought in instead of called out as much.
Yeah.
Because I feel that the end result is a lot better willingness to learn. We learn better in a safe environment than we do in one that's dangerous.
Yep, for sure.
So I try to do that, even though I can disagree a lot with people. I try to do it in a way that's not attacking who they are always, unless it needs to be. Like if you're being a rapist, you need to be attacked because who you are at that point is actually violating other humans' rights.
Right.
And sometimes I do attack Democrats when I feel like they say or do shit. It's just I can't help myself.
Right. I do try not to be like attacking, say, Democrats or even like Marxist-Leninists, even though I disagree with many of them. And like, right. But I try to like when I encounter someone, I'm like, okay, how many people do I encounter in my online activity that believe the thing they believe? Okay, now that I have a kind of a basis, some people believe this weird thing, and I don't think like I'm trying to address that, right?
Well, and I think you're great. And here's the whole point: is there's not a thing about being perfect,
right?
See, because I feel like that people try to put this on us, like I said about being arrogant, or we try to put us on ourselves that we want to really be helping, because you're a caring person. I'm a caring person because I try to be, not because I'm naturally caring.
Right.
I'm actually, like I told you, I'm a mild sociopath or high functioning sociopath, whatever you want to call it. My thing is, and it's not like a psychopath that I just sit here and desire to do bad things. It's just that my desire to care about people is very low.
Right.
I have to think, am I being abusive? I try to do this to myself because I think that an ethical person in general should be holding themselves accountable.
Sure. Yeah.
Could I do this better? Like I said before about using, the word motherfucker. It's not that my wife thought I was just not wanting to say the word fuck. And I told her, no. I appreciate that you were trying to care that I not use curse words, but that's not what I was caring about at all. My thing was I didn't want people to think I was being aggressive towards groups of people because I used that term. And I wasn't trying to use it in that way. So I realized, responsibly, I just want to switch how I do it because I want to try to present exactly what I feel.
That's fair. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because, online writing or whatever, even like you write something and people can take it totally wrong. That one guy was like, you need to read a book about non-aggressive behavior. I'm like, you ever met Cory? You ever heard him talk? I don't think aggressive behavior. You probably think that I need to read the book.
Right. Yeah. Not exactly the most aggressive person.
No, but I think that you're getting better, but I think you're getting more assertive, which is what I actually am better at, is the ability to be assertive without being aggressive.
Right.
There's a real difference. I'm super strong. People don't think I'm strong. I'm very strong. But you don't see me be very abusive.
Right.
This is a big difference.
Yeah.
And my goal, I have a video series on, doing atheism in a caring way. And it actually starts with not atheism, but you. You need to realize, what is it I'm trying to present? Even like in these videos. I want it every single time, which probably people that like history hate. I want to just us talk, and then we do the history. You know why? Right. Because we're activists. We're not historians. So I'm not trying to fake somebody out and think that we are actual historians and archaeologists. I'm a revolutionary, and that's my goal. the history is to help give the justification and the evidence to support what we think, and to show people this is the real history in a different, in a sense, light. So that's why I spend a little time every single time. Or some guy had wrote on a thing that I'm just doing promotion. Promotion of what exactly?
Right.
But anyway, so
the following information. We're promoting the information that comes later.
You're right. Yeah. Well, and often, like I said too, I want to spend time addressing issues that I think come up, because I think that there's more benefit to me as a revolutionary to get a full picture of what's going on instead of just only presenting stuff and trying to be as placid towards things as possible.
Right.
I just don't agree with that. So that's not what these videos are. So if you don't like these videos, oh well, this is what they're going to be.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, despite people maybe not liking the tone of the videos, or maybe not liking the way that things are presented, that just might mean that this isn't for you. That might, that's okay.
and maybe you should listen to it because there would be beneficial stuff that you could gain from it.
Yeah.
So, because certainly I approach prehistory in a way that's not exactly to where everyone else does. I mean, if nothing else, then I'm an anarchist. So
right.
I don't look at the civilization when there's extreme inequality and go, that's civilization.
Right. Yeah.
Because to me, civilized would be that everyone's cared for, basically socialism or communism or something. I mean, it's certainly not that you allow people to starve in the streets while you have skyscrapers.
Yeah.
You say you have the best medical in the world, yet you won't even cure people that need help.
If someone's living in a palace and someone's starving in the street, then you don't have a civilized society.
Right. To me, no. So that's why I have a real problem when they say these terms. Yeah. And like I said, also, I want to help people understand, where I'm coming from, because then at least they'll know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So I don't try to hide it. In other words, like I say, promotion. I'm not trying to hide anything. In fact, like promotion, I just ended my Patreon.
Oh, is that right?
I cut it off. I've had it for years, and I always had it for free, and I just cut it off because I told you I'm out of activism. I basically started it because I wanted it as an arm of my direct activism. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is, like I told you, I got to edit and correct all these damn blogs. Well, if I have 400 blogs or 800 blogs on my website, that also meant I had 800 blogs on my Patreon.
Right.
It's just too much work, man. I don't want to do. I want to transition to a different life, and this is not. I was like almost crying. It's just so much stuff I have to do.
Right. Yeah, it's too much work.
It's too much work, and my goal has always just been to give it free. They were free, still free on their website. So
yeah. Yeah, it might as well be on the website. Then,
anyways, I plan on having the website for years because I'm gonna start doing jewelry, and then when I do jewelry, I'll be using a side of that website, not the whole thing. But the other one will basically just still be there for free. So that was always my goal, anyways. So
yeah.
But so I think it goes to the promotion. So if people think that somehow that my goal was money as a capitalist would, you're wrong.
Well, and
I'm not saying anyone who does Patreon and gets money is actually a capitalist. I'm just making a comment that someone tried to make the statement that I'm doing this for promotion, and I'm just saying that's
no.
You don't know me. You need to watch more videos, I think. Yeah, I know. So right. I got, because have I not supported people going to your Patreon and paying you? Yep. I paid for your Patreon.
Right, exactly.
So I mean, I'm not against that. I was just saying, because everyone's got a different calling or thing that they're trying to do, and my thing has always been that I want to get education out. When I became an atheist, I felt alone.
Right.
I tried to look for information on history because I didn't just want to trust. You said all religions are wrong, but how do I know that?
Right.
Exactly. Not to say you personally, but I mean, atheists would say, I should say that. Atheists would say, oh, all the religions are wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that too, but how do we know that?
Right. Yeah. Without actually knowing more about them, how do I make that
you know anything? No, I've only studied the Bible. Well, then how do we fucking know that they all say stories? Yeah, but I don't know that that's a great way to justify
that's right.
Extreme views. And so I had extreme views, and I actually became more extreme the more I learned. Because the more I learned, I was like, well, hell yeah, this shit's all fucked up.
Yeah.
But I also got more of a nuanced view too. As you know,
yeah. Because these beliefs came from somewhere, right? Like these things came from somewhere.
Yeah. So well, and also at first my wife had said they're all connected, and I thought, oh, then maybe they are. You know, it kind of seems like it. But then I talked to a lot of archaeologists, and they're like, oh, hell no, nothing did. And so then I said, okay, fine. I'm going to try to go to the evidence. And so I believed them, and started not to believe them, and started really not to believe them, and started going,
right.
Yeah, they're just wrong.
Connected. Yeah. I'm afraid you're mistaken. Yeah.
So I'm not, and like I said, I'm not saying that every single detail is connected, but the belief in gods originates and then evolves and then goes out and then evolves and evolves and so
yep.
And then constantly are interacting through trade networks and evolving again. But a lot of the themes don't really change. They start kind of animistic deities off of natural elements, like the stars and the moon and the sun and crops, whatever. They don't really ever exactly lose that for like thousands of years.
Right.
And then when they do, they still kind of keep the same deities. They just don't really talk that much about like their origins. Is really like,
Yeah.
So, but anyways, this time, I just told you is going to be a little more interesting in the fact that it gets more into the nitty gritty. Before Eridu is basically the first city. And before that, we talked about the Ubid and the Halaf and the Samara pottery cultures,
right,
which are forming of all these societies and inequality, and stamp seals,
right.
way before language, which a lot of times the historians will go, well, yeah, they need to do that because they were finally, like I said, it's a good thing, accepting that there's individuality in culture. I'm like, yeah, but it's not really the great thing there, I don't agree that limiting resources and for people that need them because they're yours.
Right. Yeah. Claiming ownership over resources is still probably not good.
Well, that's why I like to do the series, is just show that it wasn't good. It created wars and it never freaking stopped.
Yeah.
Like I said that one time about 4,000 years of wars, or almost 5,000. It's not that it's not maybe some few years or something in between, but it was a constant battle between these places.
Right.
Sometimes, skirmishes and stuff, but a lot of times outright wars. They just took over it. They always present themselves as, these people that are saving the people or something. Yeah. I bet Hitler would have said the same thing. He's making society better.
Oh yeah, he definitely thought he was making society better, right? Like that's the worst atrocities of humanity are done in the name of making it better.
Right, and there's another thing too is that often females deities and stuff are related to tutelary deities, which I think we should actually do a video explaining like that, because all atheists really should understand this. It helped understand a lot about deities in general.
Right.
But it has to do with like a goddess of the hearth. Like in other words, like in the Aztecs, the old god of fire. It has to do with like a belief that this is a protective thing. A tutelary is like a protector, also a protector of a city. We talked about before also, that's still in a sense done nowadays, but they're more like spirits or angels, where people say, I'm a guardian angel. Well, if it just guards you, that's a tutelary deity.
Okay, yeah.
Since I believe that in a general way, all deities come out of, in a sense, tutelary deities. Even when they say they're sky or ground or whatever, they're generally like, it's for the sky, but it's for this one city, or this thing, and this one people, like the Jews. Like this God is only for the Jews, in a sense.
Right.
Like what Jesus said, I've come for the children of Israel.
Right.
Well, that's a tutelary deity. Because it's basically saying its focus is this one thing, this one people, this one place. Like when they say the Holy Land, well, then you're saying that something has deemed this one place as better than other places.
Right.
That's a tutelary deity mentality.
Yeah, it's
so this
more
is
personalized.
This is important. Right. This is important because when we talk about these city states, they all had their own tutelary deity.
Of course. Yeah.
and Sumerian religion, in a general kind of sense, I'm not going into details, but in a general sense, basically said it believed that the I don't remember now if it's a goddess or a god or just in general group of gods, felt that it was best for society to have each city have its own deity, or how exactly that structure good, but there's basically a belief that they all have one or should have them. But like I said, it's not that different than saying everybody should have their own, guardian angel.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's just this is the protector deity of this town or whatever, right?
Right. And when you start to grasp that, I think it really helps understand where especially some people try to say, oh, well, these deities aren't harmful because they're protectors. Yeah. But it's just like saying capitalists that just protect, their empire are great people. I mean, while everyone else starves, really? Would you call those great people? Are they really a great goddess or god if they only protect this one person or people and they don't protect other people, since somehow other people are not as good, which sounds kind of racist or ethnocentric or whatever.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, so sometimes people like present it like, oh, well, they're not harmful. They're tiliar deities. I'm like, yeah, I think that you're not grasping the full concept of what that could mean.
Yeah, that's right. That means that still means we can go to war with a neighboring city, right?
Oh yeah, or if a neighboring city even tries to, influence us, that we have the right to kill them because, how dare you affect our children?
Yeah, that's right.
We are better. But anyway, so go ahead and show the thing.
Right. We want the 30s, that little short little one first, and okay, hold on. All right, so this is our initial one.
By around 7,000 to 6,000 BC, people began to move south along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to what were by then the fertile floodplains of Mesopotamia, specifically in the land that today makes up most of Iraq and parts of northern Syria. Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers, is the Greek name for the area, and it's here that early farms began to really take root on a much larger scale.
So that's where we are.
Right. So people understand where we're talking about if they don't know what Mesopotamia is.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk about, we're on to Uruk, the city, right?
Correct. Well, and the period. They call it a period because it was a mass expansion to multiple areas. Although it goes even, to me, up to the cultures in the Cossack Mountains, a relation between the Sumerians and people of southern Mesopotamia. And I can't remember, it's 6,500 or 6,000 or something, when people from farmer DNA ends up over there and starting to go, I think, into the steppe. So influencing those places.
Okay.
But I also think it's possible that people from in a sense, those areas went down also in either trade or whatever, could have come down and given people ideas about what is up there. And then people brought, up there willingly, or even maybe captives, and taken them and bring the culture. So I don't know that they have a distinct of what happens. A lot of times they say that the Uruk people went all the way up there, within, in a sense, not that much in between, went all the way up to the Cossack Mountains, which is like Georgia.
Okay.
The country of Georgia, I'm talking about.
Right, yeah. Up there in Eastern Europe almost.
Yeah, right. So the point I'm trying to say is, though, I hear a lot of archaeologists seem to present it as that like the people from southern Mesopotamia went up there and just colonized everything. Well, it may look that way, but that doesn't mean that we know exactly what happened. So because I feel that those people are trading gold down with the lower people. If it's a colony, I don't know exactly how they're trading on such an uneven thing. It's not like the people of lower Mesopotamia owned the supposed, what they call, colony up there.
Right.
And they say, well, they once the DNA shows up, a lot of the buildings change. Well, that could be just cultural ideas. Or maybe it was a mixed society.
Right.
I'm just saying that I don't feel that the fact that the way that the trade seems to be on the benefit of the Northerners, how you can say the Southerners are controlling the North. Maybe they have influence in some way, but
Yeah, it makes it tough to say that. Yeah, they control them. But-
Yeah, because then if they really controlled them, then you would find the gold coming down like all the time in a real distinct way, not like they're trading, and hoping they get gold.
Yeah. So I think this video for the that we have is kind of a long one. So let me know if you need to break in or whatever.
Well, yeah, I'll break in if I see a particular thing I want to address.
Okay.
Up until now, the early settlements that we've been taking a look at have all been quite small, perhaps a few hundred people on average, the exception being places like Eridu or Tel Zaydan in Syria. Both of these places during the Ubaid period may have had as many as 3,000 people at any given time. Few would have thought, though, that perhaps only a millennium later, there would be a city in ancient Mesopotamia with a population in the tens of thousands. Less than 200 kilometers northwest of Eridu is the site of Uruk. It's here that most archaeologists and historians believe that the world's first true city came into being sometime during the 4th millennium BC. Though it's impossible to know for sure, archaeological surveys seem to indicate that by 3500 BC, Uruk may have had at least 25,000 residents. This may not seem like much to us today. In most places, especially in the Western world, 25,000 residents is perhaps at best a medium-sized town. However, in the 4th millennium BC, this would have been a mega urban center, a place that those living in towns like Eridu a few generations earlier would not have been able to have even comprehended. Historians call this rapid growth of cities in southern Mesopotamia between the years 4000 to 3100 BC the Uruk phenomenon, or the Uruk period. It's also believed by many archaeologists.
What he's shown, he may say it, but what he's shown right there is like what they call a priest king.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so and he has that weird, almost like the Amish, right, where no mustache, but yet humongous beard.
Big beard.
Right, and one of the things I think the Amish don't do it for is because it when you have a mustache, it's a sign of leadership or something like that, or like I can't remember exactly, but it's something which I think is interesting since they're not doing it too, and at the same time they're a priest king. So maybe the Amish are doing it backwards. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so, but the round hat like that, like it looks like a weird, almost a derby. It could just be a leather covering, like almost like a Jewish, just the little doily, and then the big round thing might actually be like a headband, later to be like a crown. Just so people can understand, it may not actually, it looks like a hat, but it may not actually be a hat.
Right.
So just wanted to clarify that. And you see those before Egypt becomes a power. You see the people with these exact kind of hats becoming like leaders before what we think is dynastic Egypt.
Okay.
And they're definitely probably influenced from Mesopotamia. So go ahead.
Cool.
Archaeologists and historians that sometime during this period, a people whose real origin is unknown may have entered into the region and mixed with the local Ubaid population, adopting much of their culture and religion as their own. What the Ubaidians called them is anyone's guess. They, however, would call themselves Sagiga, meaning the black-headed people, and their homeland, Kiengir.
Pause for 1 second. So the people are never depicted as black. So some people think the black-headed means black skin. I've heard some, what do they call it, Pan-African beliefs or whatever.
Okay.
Somehow Sumerians are this hidden black race. When they say from other people, they probably mean northern, like Turkey or Iran. And and I was thinking, to me, black-headed could actually be black hair.
Right.
Like Asian descent.
Okay.
And certainly there is a connection up to Siberia, which is more Asian, in a sense, influenced as far as hair. Although they had already blonde hair and red hair, having dark hair is not an impossibility. I don't know that that's the thing. I'm just saying that, or they could have actually painted their heads or something. So I just wanted to clarify that they didn't mean black people.
Right. Yeah, it would seem, I don't know, maybe it's hard to get in the head of somebody in that age why these would be called the black-headed people. And
right, I just wanted to make a statement though. I don't think it relates to their skin color.
Right.
That's all. That's the main thing I
that's
wanted
fair.
to point out. That's all I wanted to point out, and that there could be a logical reason like black hair,
right?
Or something, where other people have a brown hair, and then someone has a darker hair. We'll call them the black-headed people. Or like I said, like that thing he wore on his head, maybe it was painted black,
right,
to represent like the night sky, because
Yeah.
they do have a lot of sky deities. I'm just making a comment. So, in a lot of the king priests are under a deity or represent a deity on earth, or represent a relation to the deity on earth. So I'm just saying that I don't claim to know why they call it black-headed.
Right.
I'm just making the comment that I really have a doubt that it has anything to do with black skin. That's all.
Okay.
In the past, villages were believed to have been ruled by a small council of elders presided over by a tribal chieftain. However, the rise of cities divided society into multiple classes that were ruled by religious, military, and political elites. Though the specifics of early government in Uruk aren't known, it's believed that the person at the top was a sort of priest king who held both religious and secular authority. Below him on the social hierarchy were other priests, followed by a few elites or what we'd classify as noble families, and then specialized laborers, including artisans, craftsmen, fishermen, farmers, gardeners, and herdsmen, just to name a few. In later centuries, with the advent of writing, a scribal class would also develop. Below all of these were slaves. Cities were also the place where certain objects were first produced in mass quantity. In the past, everyday items such as pottery and textiles were produced at home and generally for private use. However, during the Uruk period, specialized artisans and weavers mostly took over this task. The objects and clothing that they created may not have been decorated as ornately as in the past, but that wasn't the point. They simply had to be well made and useful. An example of this are the beveled rimmed bowls discovered in Uruk. Fancy, they weren't, but they did the job. The day-to-day functioning of such an ancient, urban society required some type of authority to help organize tasks and distribute resources.
Pause for a second. It doesn't require some authority. See what I'm saying? How they throw that in there?
Yeah.
Oh, to have organized, you'd have to have this organizing authority. No. You can have communal stuff, and they certainly have all kinds of things being done. You do not need an organizing authority. I guess you could say that if you want to have utilitarian stuff mass produced, and always, in a certain way, that it takes an organizing authority or an oppressive, unequal authority. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I don't like how they present it as like it's a good thing. Like, well, of course.
Yeah, it's just the natural state of things. You have to have an authority.
Right.
Sorry, I disagree.
Right, yeah. To produce anything good, you need it to be done under an authority.
No.
As well as to keep order. In Uruk, as in other urban areas during this period, this was made possible by religion. Each city had a patron deity who technically, at least when they were on Earth, lived in the city, usually at a shrine or temple dedicated to it. In Eridu, we saw that this deity was the god Enki. In Uruk, that honor went primarily to the goddess Inanna, although the god An also had a large temple there. In theory, the god of each city received goods from the people, which were a form of taxes, usually denominated in wheat, barley, pottery, textiles, or whatever useful items could be given. This was then redistributed to both the religious and political establishment, and then later to the general population. In most cases, this redistribution took place in the city's main temple complex, run by specially dedicated priests and priestesses who also conducted religious rituals.
Right. So did you hear what he said, which I've heard some people try to present it like I said, proto-socialism. So they basically have a tax system, right? He didn't say that, because they say something, oh, they communally all put their stuff, together, and then it was distributed to everyone. That's not accurate.
Right.
Like he said it more accurate to me, that it's a tax system, and it first benefited the priests, and then all the state officials. And then later, after they built the buildings and did all the things they wanted in their palaces, and then they'll give the some of it back to the people. It's like, yeah, that's...
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like socialism to me.
They'll give some of it back to the people.
What's left after they've paid themselves.
Yeah, that's right. After we've taken our massive share. Yeah. So that's the end of that clip that we had for this one. So then I've got my script.
Yes.
So the Uruk period, 4000 to 3100 BCE, or 6022 years ago to 5122 years ago, also known as the Proto-Literate period, existed from the Proto-Historic Chalcolithic to the Early Bronze Age.
Which is the Copper Age.
The Copper Age.
Right. Chalcolithic. Lithic being like stone tools.
Okay, yeah.
Chalio, I guess it means copper.
Must mean copper.
Tools, in a sense. Lithic is a type of tool. It's usually stone tools. Like when they say Neolithic, it means new Stone Age.
Oh, okay.
And Paleolithic is old Stone Age in a sense.
Okay. So from the Proto-Historic Copper Age to the Early Bronze Age period in the history of Mesopotamia, after the Ubaid period and before the Jedmet Nasser period. Named after the Sumerian city of Uruk, this period saw the emergence of urban life in Mesopotamia and the Sumerian civilization. The late Uruk period, 34th to 32nd centuries BCE, saw the gradual emergence of the cuneiform script and corresponds to the early Bronze Age. It has also been described as the Proto-Literate period. During this period, pottery painting declined as copper started to become popular along with cylinder seals. However, the Anu, or White Temple Ziggurat at Uruk, the original pyramidal structure, the Anu Ziggurat, dates to around 4000 BCE or 6022 years ago, and the White Temple was built on top of it circa 3500 BCE or 5522 years ago.
And at that point, it's more like a step pyramid, which comes later, because those could become after 5,000, like 4,000 something.
Right, which is, and that's built on top of this other stuff.
Right. So my point is going back to the same thing. The pyramids started from one building, and then someone way later built another thing, and then later built another thing on top of that, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's a new idea. So they start doing that.
Right.
And then later, that becomes smooth-sided, which we call pyramids. Right. Think of as pyramids. So, but it was a gradual process, not like somebody came down and gave them all this technology.
Right. But we still don't know how to build smooth pyramids in the modern age.
Yeah, wrong. You just mean it would cost a lot of money, because now we use the money. But it costs a lot of money back then, too.
For sure. Yeah, that's right. They had crews doing it every day. It was a committed project from the kingdom, right?
Speaking of which, that temple that you just talked about, I think I watched a thing that said it took 150,000 people or something like that, or I can't remember that exactly, and it took them like 5 years, working like 10 hours a day.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive project.
Massive project.
Yeah. What do we got? So we're on to the priest, the king, Uruk king priest. The traditional chronology is very imprecise and is based on some key soundages in the Eanna quarter at Uruk. The most ancient levels of these.
Eanna is a goddess, by the way.
Right. Yeah, that's the Uruk's goddess, right?
Right, one of them. Yeah. So in Eanna or Ishtar later is since a similar, if not the same deity, just different name because of different language. It's different
Right.
people, but they use the same deity. Originally, Diana was an Diana pole, which later the Bible talks about Ashtar poles even being in the temple itself, that in Israel, that I think Judah goes there and destroys because it shouldn't be there. But I think that still is kind of relating to these original poles, which is basically a bound reeds in a sense, or a wood pole. And on the top is like a ring, which is supposed to represent, in a sense, probably either the moon or the star or the sun, or it could also be the whole being a vagina, because then there's like a red sash that comes down. And later, I have a meme of it later that I made, is even the Egyptian kings would wear this red sash in battle, and it was basically believed to connect to the Ankh symbol, which represented the deity, and also menstrual cloths.
Okay.
Basically red because of blood, meaning the goddess is blood, which maybe relates to virgins, or certainly some priestess that's supposedly embodying probably the goddess herself on earth.
Right.
Because like when they say priest kings that run these cities, a goddess, in a sense, is the patron deity, let's say, and the king has sex with these priestesses of the goddess, and that's kind of sacred marriage. That's why he's okay to be king, because the goddess, in a sense, blesses him. Whatever.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, so you understand a lot of this is connected. So I'm just saying, when they say like the district, probably it's an area that had a whole bunch of these Ashtar poles.
Right. Okay.
Could have been, dyed red originally, if not during that time.
Okay.
Originally meant something probably to the menstrual, like a tampon kind of a thing.
Okay.
Sacred tampon bowl.
Interesting.
Which is definitely a different take than we take on, and certainly even later,
Right.
They see women as being defiled, like in Jewish law and some other even African areas, that you can't have sex during a pregnancy, or even let a woman touch something during not pregnancy. I mean menstrual cycles.
Right, and then they're not allowed to touch certain things because it could spoil it or whatever.
Right. So or be impure or whatever.
Yeah.
Somehow, but I'm just saying the shift is that originally women's periods were seen as sacred. It's a sacred thing enough to win battles, or help protect you, because it's a protected tularity deity to protect you. But I'm just saying that it's what a drastic change to go from putting up a really high on a pole, like 6 feet tall or 7 feet tall,
right,
and have this humongous, bloody rag in front of everybody all the time, and that's a great thing. To all of a sudden women can't touch things, or because they're
yeah, that's right. So the most ancient levels of these soundages, and then it's got Roman numerals, looks like 19 and 13, belong to the end of the Ubaid period, Ubaid 5, 4200 to 3900 or 3700 BCE. Pottery characteristics of the Uruk period begins to appear in levels. Sorry, my daughter's making some fussing up at the top of the stairs.
No problem.
The Uruk period begins to appear in levels 14 to 13. The Uruk period is traditionally divided into many phases. The first two are Old Uruk, then Middle Uruk. Then these first two phases are poorly known, and their chronological limits are poorly defined. Many different chronological systems are found in scholarship. From the middle of the 4th millennium BCE, it transitions to the best-known period, Late Uruk, which continues until around 3200 or 3100 BCE. It is, in fact, in this period that the features which are generally seen as most characteristics of the civilization of the Uruk period occur. High technological development, the development of important urban agglomerations with imposing monumental structures. The most characteristic of these is the level 4 of Iana, the appearance of state institutions, and the expansion of the Uruk civilization throughout the whole Near East. From the Jedmet Nasser period, this phase of late Uruk is followed by another phase, in brackets it's got level 3 of Iana, in which the Uruk civilization declined and a number of distinct local cultures developed throughout the Near East. This is generally known as the Jedmet Nasser period, after the archaeological site of that name. Its exact nature is highly debated, and it is difficult to clearly distinguish its traits from those of the Uruk culture, so some scholars refer to it as the final Uruk period instead. It lasted from around 3000 to 2900 BCE. In a section, we've got alternative chronology. In 2001, a chronology has been proposed by the members of a colloquium at Santa Fe based on recent excavations, especially at sites outside Mesopotamia. They consider the Uruk period to be the late Copper Age. Their LC corresponds to the end of the Ubaid period and ends around 4200 BCE or 6222 years ago. With the beginning of the LC2, which is the first phase of the Uruk period. They divide Old Uruk into two phases, with the dividing line placed around 4000 BCE, or 6022 years ago. Around 3800 BCE, or 5822 years ago, LC3 begins, which corresponds to the Middle Uruk phase, and continues until around 3400 BCE, or 5422 years ago, when it is succeeded by the LC4. It rapidly transitions to LC5, also known as Late Uruk, which continues until 3000 BCE, or 5022 years ago. Some other chronological proposals have also been put forward, such as by the Arcane team. Arcane stands for Associated Regional Chronologies for the Ancient Near East. Although chronology of the Uruk period is full of uncertainties, it is generally agreed to have a rough span of 1,000 years covering from the period from 4000 to 3000 BCE, or 6022 years ago to 5022 years ago, and to be divided into several phases. An initial urbanization and elaboration of the Urukian, I almost said Ukrainian,
Yeah.
of Urukian cultural traits marks the transition from the end of the Ubaid period, Old Uruk, then a period of expansion, Middle Uruk, with a peak during which the characteristic traits of the Uruk civilization are definitively established, and then Late Uruk, and then a retreat of Urukian influence and increase in cultural diversity in the Near East, along with a decline of the center.
Once again, it just shows that it's not like some ancient alien comes. There's a slow process, and then I think that some of the thing when they say about cultural things is, I think that they tried to do, in the sense, empire. They tried to, really take over areas and dominate them, and then, as natural people would like to do, is we like to be not subjugated.
Yep, not dominated by rulers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this whole thing, I'm your ruler thousands of miles away, just kind of doesn't work very good.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of times when you see these big changes, they're also superseded, or in a sense, at the same time or before, like not cultural in a sense events, but climate events.
Right.
Like areas will become really dry or whatever, or they'll become flooded, or different events happen. And this type of a natural catastrophe, even nowadays, presents either opportunities for smaller ones to branch off and escape,
right,
or the centralized power to lose that power in a sense, or to some extent.
Yeah.
I think that definitely is seen in a lot of the Mesopotamia, just like even in the flood story.
Right.
A lot of this kind of idea that natural catastrophes, aided a lot of, disruption to what they would call civilization. But I mean, obviously, if someone's oppressing a bunch of other people, I like I said, I still, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Some researchers have attempted to explain this final stage as the arrival of new populations of Semitic origin, the future Akkadians. But there is no conclusive proof of this. In Lower Mesopotamia, the researchers identified this as the Jemdet Nasser period, which sees a shift to a more concentrated habitation, undoubtedly accompanied by a reorganization of power. In southwestern Iran, it is the Proto-Elamite period. Nineveh V, or 5, in Upper Mesopotamia, which follows the Gara culture. Yeah. The Scarlet Whale culture in Diyala. In Lower Mesopotamia, the early dynastic period begins around the start of the 3rd millennium BCE, during which this region again exerts considerable influence over its neighbors. Lower Mesopotamia. Lower Mesopotamia is the core of the Uruk period culture, and the region seems to have been the cultural center of the time because this is where the principal monuments are found and the most obvious traces of an urban society, with state institutions developing in the second half of the 4th millennium BCE, the first system of writing, and it is the material and symbolic culture of this region which had the most influence on the rest of the Near East at this time. However, this region is not well known archaeologically, since only the site of Uruk itself has provided traces of monumental architecture and administrative documents, which justify seeing this region as the most dynamic and influential. At some other sites, construction from this period has been found, but they are usually known only as a result of soundages. In the current state of knowledge, it remains impossible to determine whether the site of Uruk was actually unique in this region or if it was simply an accident of excavation that makes it seem more important than others. That's fair.
Which is why I was saying that some try to say that, the relationship with the North is an expansion from the South. It could have been mutual.
Right. It's hard to say. Like there's not enough evidence to make a solid conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Maybe it's just trade partners. Maybe, and another thing too is like there's people that show up from the Indus civilization with the Sumerians. Indus civilizations are near Pakistan or present-day Pakistan and Western India. But they show up. I mean, people show up to build things or to make pottery or make whatever, make bracelets or arm bands or whatever.
Okay.
Out of shell from, and they're working in a sense as laborers in Mesopotamia, even though that's not where they're from. Now, were they taking their slaves? Were they just trading? I don't know. But still, it's like capitalism. They have these workers imported.
Right.
Or came trying to find work, I don't know which exactly, but they certainly weren't at a level of power. So not like they were taking over. They were workers.
Right. This is the region of the Near East that was the most agriculturally productive as a result of an irrigation system which developed in the 4th millennium BCE and focused on the cultivation of barley, along with the date palm and various other fruits and legumes, and the pasturing of sheep for their wool. Although it lacked mineral resources and was located in an arid area, it had an undeniable geographic and environmental advantages. It consisted of a vast delta, a flat region transected by waterways, resulting in a potentially vast area of cultivatable land, over which communications by river or land were easy. It may have become a highly populated and urbanized region in the 4th millennium BCE with a social hierarchy, artisanal activities, and long-distance commerce. It has been the focus of the archaeological investigation led by Robert McCormick Adams Jr., whose work has been very important for the understanding of the emergence of urban societies in this region. A clear settlement hierarchy has been identified, dominated by a number of agglomerations which grew more and more important over the 4th millennium BCE, of which Uruk seems to have been the most important by far, making this the most ancient known case of urban macrocephaly. Since its hinterland seems to have reinforced Uruk itself to the detriment of its neighbors, notably the region to the north around Adab and Nippur, in the final part of the period. The ethnic composition of this region in the Uruk period cannot be determined with certainty. It is connected to the problem of the origins of the Sumerians and the dating of their emergence, if they are considered locals of the region, or their arrival, if they are thought to have migrated. In Lower Mesopotamia, there is no agreement on the archaeological evidence for a migration or on whether the earliest forms of writing already reflects a specific language. Some argue that it is actually Sumerian, in which case the Sumerians would have been its inventors, and it would have already been present in the region in the final centuries of the 4th millennium at the latest. And that seems to be the most widely accepted position.
My position is that language started in China,
right,
and then migrated down in through the Intermountain Corridor into Iran, in a sense, and eastern Turkey, and then down the rivers and valleys into Mesopotamia.
Okay.
And then I think that the areas there then adapted it into their own more, stylized versions, but the idea.
Okay.
Certainly pottery came from China.
Sorry, just
oh, no problem.
Mom wants me to answer your text, please. She's trying to order new clothes and she needs guys to do that.
I'll text you when I'm done.
Okay.
I'm recording right now.
Right. And I'm not saying that I have 100% proof of all this stuff, but I do have proof, like I've shown you in the other video, the first one of this series, that stuff from China is first, and it goes into Siberia, and then from there, like it goes across the steppe,
right,
Europe, and then, like I said, it goes to me down the Intermountain Corridor into Iran, and that's why the first pottery in Mesopotamia doesn't start in a major city, where if it's in a sense a total cultural thing, you would think that it start in some massive pre-city that already was there. No, it doesn't start there. It starts in the middle of nowhere near the Zagros Mountains, which is right near the Intermountain Corridor.
Okay, well, where was I? Shit, I lost my place. Yeah, we got the ethnic composition of this region in the Uruk period cannot be determined with certainty. It is connected to the problem of the origins of the Sumerians, the dating of emergence. Yeah, okay, so I read that already. Some argue that it's already a Sumerian. God damn it. Whether other ethnic groups were also present, especially Semitic ancestors of the Akkadians, or one of several pre-Sumerian peoples, neither Sumerian nor Semite, and predating both in the region, it is also debated and cannot be resolved by excavation.
Well, not currently, I would say, because eventually, with DNA and more excavation, I think it could be possible.
Right. It's tough to say it can't be solved, but
well, I mean, some things maybe can't be solved. We can't know exactly how they used, something, as an artifact. That may be true. That we could have inference and what possibly could be, but I think there are. But some things they say, like we can't figure out the genetic makeup.
Right.
I don't agree to that.
Yeah. No.
I mean, maybe you can't do it yet.
But it could definitely come.
Like I heard someone say that they relate to the current Marsh Arabs. Right. But that doesn't mean that's where they started. And even like all the videos, even that guy that we're talking in the data doesn't say that they started in the marshes.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's where the current people that were genetically close to them are related. That doesn't.
Right. Now we have urban Uruk. Out of these urban agglomerations, it is Uruk, the period's eponymous site, which was the largest by far, according to our current knowledge, and it is the main one from which the chronological sequence of the period has been constructed. It may have covered 230 to 500 hectares at its peak during the late Uruk period, more than the other contemporary large settlements, and it may have had a population of between 25,000 and 50,000 people. The architectural profile of the site consists of two monumental groups located 500 meters apart. The most remarkable constructions are located in the sectors called Eanna, after the temple which was located there in subsequent periods and possibly already at this stage. After the limestone temple of level 5, a program of construction hitherto unparalleled was begun in level 4. Thereafter, the buildings were vastly larger than earlier. Some had novel designs, and new construction techniques were used for the structure and the decoration. Level 4 of the Eanna is divided into two monumental groups. In the west, a complex centered on the temple with mosaics, decorated with
mosaics, so people understand. Later Greek mosaics are generally like this little tiny chip piece of something, and they put a whole bunch of them together to make a picture.
Right.
That's not exactly what they mean. Maybe it looks sort of like that, like from the outside, but it's more like a cone shape, or it's like, I don't know, say it's 6 or 8 inches or something, or 10 inches, which I don't know what that is metric, but because I stupid live under the imperial system.
Yeah, I don't know either, because the conversion is a pain in the ass.
But anyways, it's a substantial thing. It's certainly longer than your hand.
Right.
So it like sticks into, say, the clay, and then it dries, and from the outside, all you see is the end of it, like a flat painted end. But there's actually like a whole. I'm just saying, the later mosaics are more like a little chip piece
tiles
of
or whatever.
Yeah, like tiles, like little miniature, tiny little baby tiles.
Yeah.
So that's a totally. I'm just saying, when they say mosaic, it's like, yeah, it looked like that maybe.
But it's a different method of doing a mosaic.
Totally different.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it says decorated with mosaics made of painted clay cones.
Right.
Of level 4B, subsequently covered by another building, the Rimchen building of level 4A. To the east, there is a very important group of structures, notably a square building and the Rimchen building, which were subsequently replaced by other buildings with original plans, like the hall with pillars and the hall with mosaics, a square grand court, and two very large buildings with a tripartite plan. Temple C and Temple D. Temple C was 54 by 22 meters, and Temple D was 80 by 50 and was the largest building known from the Uruk period. The second monumental sector was attributed to the god Anu by the excavators of the site because it was the location of a sanctuary for this god some 3,000 years later. It is dominated by a series of temples built on a high terrace after the Ubaid period. The best preserved of these is the White Temple of the level 4, which measures 17.5 by 22.3 meters and gets its name from the white plates that covered its walls. At its base, a building with a labyrinth plan called the Stone Building was built. The function of these buildings, which are unparalleled in their size and the fact that they are gathered in monumental groups, is debated. The excavators of the site wanted to see them as temples, influenced by the fact that in the historic period, the Eanna was the area dedicated to the goddess Inanna, and the other sector was dedicated to the god An. This conformed to the theory of the temple city, which was in vogue during the interwar period. It is possible that this is actually a place of power formed by a complex of buildings of different forms, or palatial residences, administrative spaces, and palace chapels, and was desired by the dominant power in the city, whose nature was still unclear.
But as we would say in understanding that even when they made these palaces, often they still were catering to the elites. So it's not like
right.
So people are you're missing the point if you think that it really is that different, because often, even though later it was more geared towards the deity living there, the idea that somebody of power lives somewhere and then is better than everyone else in the old city or whatever, and is seen as its patron or protector, even though it's not. You have to give things to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a terrible stretch to say people went from a god to a king, right?
and vice versa.
Yeah,
a king to a god. Like some of the people that like even the Epic of Gilgamesh. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but
yep,
it's one of the oldest stories, and it has the flood myth in it that is used in Genesis, but and it's before Genesis, at least 1,000 years, I think, if not more. But the other thing is that that supposedly was a king,
right?
That eventually became a demigod, or basically a god itself. I mean, or some people just say it's a great hero, but I mean, the whole point is that the distinction of priest, king, god, whatever, because like I said, sometimes even like I said, the priestesses could be representing the god on earth or goddess on earth when you're having sex with them. So I mean,
right,
the distinction between is a priest, God's emissary, or the god itself in human form.
Right. Kind of just a matter of how that particular belief system places.
And it moved around. I mean, sometimes sometimes that's exactly what it was, but sometimes we don't know, or it may have vacillated between it's just a priestess or it's actually the goddess.
Right.
They're working on the goddess's behalf or God's behalf. So, but I mean, that's also why I laugh at people that like, we need to go back to the separation of church and state. And I'm just like, that's a new thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Although
church and state were like pretty intermingled for a long time.
Yeah, that's how they started. And continued for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly
like the separation of church and state.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. Even though I think, like I said before, that the new atheist movement is often reactionary to me, or something close to it.
Very much so.
Because what I'm saying is because they present themselves as new thought and free ideas and advancement, and they want to advance just to the point that we separate church and state, or separate church and education or something. They don't want society to be better. They don't want women's rights. I mean, some do, but but also you would say the big schism and even current, new atheism, is this, that they don't like wokeness, and they don't like, liberalism, and they don't want to hear about trans and stuff. And right. So what you're saying is, or they want Western culture back, like barf. Yeah. So I mean, they're validating my opinion that that's a reactionary. It wasn't really that you had progressive ideas and you're for equality, freedom of all, and you hate oppression because that's what religion does. Okay, but there's all kinds of oppression. How about capitalism oppresses people? I mean, you see, have no problem with keeping that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not trying to outright attack the new atheists, other than if they deserve to be attacked, they deserve to be attacked. So.
Right. Yeah. So, in any case, it was necessary to invest considerable effort to construct these buildings, which shows the capacities of the elites of this period. Or, maybe it shows the capacities of the working class.
Yeah. That's why I love when they say king built things. King didn't build shit.
Yeah.
Well, he paid for it. He paid for it from taxes of the working people.
Yeah, he took money from people and then paid workers to do it in some cases.
Yeah. And some not.
Yeah. Uruk is also the site of the most important discoveries of the early writing tablets. In levels 4 and 3, in a context where they had been disposed of, which means that the context in which they were created is not known to us. Uruk 3, which corresponds to the Jedmet Nasser period, sees a complete reorganization of the Iana quarter, in which the buildings on the site were raised and replaced by a grand terrace, which ignores the earlier buildings. In their foundations, a deposit, which is probably of a cultic nature, was found containing the major artistic works of the period. So, like large cultic vase and cylinder seals.
Right. So let me explain real quick. A lot of times when archaeologists explain things, they don't say it's religion. They'll say it's cultic or it's ritualistic. They use really, wishy-washy words as opposed to utilitarian, meaning that they believe it has no reference to a religious thing, which I find to be also kind of weird because even sometimes like a spoon actually can have a religious meaning, or a bowl can have a religious meaning, or a meal could have a religious meaning. Don't Christians pray over every single meal?
Right,
Are there meals not given by God? My point is, I'm saying is that I think it's good to understand that there may have been some things that were not directly related to religion, especially back when it started, and even sometimes now, there really isn't this distinction that people act like there is.
Right.
Well, to me, as I told you before, to everybody, it's just culture. So,
right.
Culture, religion. I'm like, it's all culture.
Yeah. Religion is part of culture.
There you go. Languages too.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Like everything is part of culture. Yeah.
Well, that's why they call them like the Ubaid culture, or whatever. They're talking about pottery. So pottery is part of culture.
Right.
Because it has a distinct, reference to a certain time and people or place or whatever.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that the Ubaid is one kind of DNA.
Right. No, yeah. That's right. And I don't know. I guess it's hard to tell, but it stands to reason that it wouldn't all be the same DNA.
Well, there sometimes be similar DNAs, but I'm just making a point that even like when I say in DNA, there's not just one kind of in DNA. There's in DNA 1, in DNA 1A, 1B, 1C, and those are different tribes in a sense. Or so same with our DNA takes over almost all of Europe. In fact, you and me are probably white related to our DNA.
Right.
Almost if you're white and European, you have our DNA. It's somewhere in your DNA,
in your history or
whatever. Genetic history.
Yeah.
So my point is though, but that doesn't mean that everybody who's white is the same tribe.
Right.
And certainly, like look at how Europe is. I mean, certainly they don't want to even be connected to every tribe that has the same DNA or similar DNA.
Right. Yeah.
Germans and Poles or Russians, so all these Scandinavians, all of them have this level of stuff to some varying amount or not.
Right.
That doesn't actually mean they all agree. So I'm just saying that even if you have similar DNA, that still can have variations of culture. So
for sure. Other sites in lower Mesopotamia. Outside Uruk, few sites in southern Mesopotamia have yielded levels contemporary with the Uruk period. Soundages carried out on the sites of
soundages, just in case people know, is that's like when they do like X-ray or whatever, or they're trying to figure out how low into the ground the evidence of culture is.
Mm-hmm. Soundages carried out on the sites of most of the key cities of Mesopotamia in the historic period have revealed that they were occupied in this period. Kish, Girsu, Nippur, Ur, perhaps Shuruppak and Larsa, and further north in Diyala, Tel Asmar, and Kafaja. The sacred quarter of Eridu, site of the main monumental structures of the Ubaid period in Lower Mesopotamia, is poorly known for the Uruk period. Through Uruk period pottery was found there, though Uruk period pottery was found there. The only important structure from the end of the 4th millennium BCE so far from the region outside Uruk is the Painted Temple on the platform of Tel Uqer, which dates to the end of the Uruk period, or perhaps the Jedmet Nasser period, and consists of 2 terraces superimposed on one another from a building of around 18 by 22 meters, identified as having a cultic function. More recently, a level belonging to the Uruk period has been revealed on the Tel southeast of the site of Abu Salabik, also known as Uruk Mound, covering only 10 hectares. This site was surrounded by a wall which has only been partially revealed, and several buildings have been brought to light, including a platform which supported a building, only traces of which remain. As for the site of Jedmet Nasser, which is given its name to the period of the transition from Uruk period to the early dynastic period, it is divided into 2 main tells, and it is on the second mound B, that the most important building has been brought to light, which contained a substantial cache of administrative documents, more than 200 tablets with impressions of cylinder seals. Neighboring regions. The sources relating to the Uruk period derive from a group of sites distributed over an immense area covering all of Mesopotamia and the neighboring regions up to Iran and southeastern Anatolia. The Uruk culture itself is certainly characterized mainly by sites of southern Mesopotamia and others which seem to have directly resulted from migrations from this region. In brackets, the colonies or emporia, which are clearly part of the Uruk culture. But the phenomenon, which is known as the Uruk expansion, is detected on sites situated across a vast zone of influence, covering the whole Near East, regions which were not really part of the Uruk culture, which was strictly speaking limited to lower Mesopotamia. The relations of some areas with the Uruk culture are very unclear, as the little-known cultures of the Persian Gulf in this period, and Egypt, whose exact relations with the Uruk culture were distant and are the object of debate as well.
Well, it's not a debate that they were there. The question is, what were they doing there?
The nature of the relationship.
Right, yeah. There's a relationship. The question is, like I was saying too about the North. I've heard before where they try to act like the Cossack Mountains are somehow invaded or populated by these. Well, you don't know exactly how that happened.
Right.
What exactly? Like I said, the relationship. I do know that it doesn't seem like they're owning the area. So even if there was a say migration, it was then later cut off to where they weren't behooving or like a vassal of the lower people.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it. Let's put it that way. It doesn't to me.
Okay.
Because the level of trade, if it was a vassal thing, would appear to me to be different.
Right. Yeah, you'd end up with a different sort of relation, right?
Oh yeah, the opposite is different. You'd have tons of workers, and then they're sending all this stuff down.
Right.
But some stuff is coming down, but it seems like other stuff is going back up.
So it doesn't seem like it's like you say, like they weren't dominant.
Yeah, they may have been related somehow, but like I said, same with Egypt. I'm not saying there definitely was priest kings or something that show up in Egypt. Now, were they rulers that migrated from Mesopotamia and then took over Egypt, or are they just this similar idea or related idea? Hey, that's a great idea. I'm doing that too.
Right. We've also got the Levant,
which is kind of like Israel, Lebanon, Palestine, whatever, all that stuff.
And apparently the influence of southern Mesopotamia remains barely perceptible. In other areas, the Uruk culture is more evident, such as Upper Mesopotamia, northern Syria, western Iran, and southeastern Anatolia. They generally experienced an evolution similar to that of Lower Mesopotamia, with the development of urban agglomerations and larger political entities, and they were strongly influenced by the culture of the center in the latter part of the period, 3400 to 3200 BCE, or 5,422 years ago to 5,222 years ago. Before a general strengthening of their own regional cultures took place at the turn of the 3rd millennium BCE. The interpretation of the expansion of the Uruk culture into neighboring regions poses numerous problems, and many explanatory models have been proposed in order to explain it. Susiana and the Iranian Plateau. The region around Susa in the southwest of modern Iran is located right next to Lower Mesopotamia, which exercised a powerful influence on it from the 5th millennium BCE and might be considered to have been part of the Uruk culture in the second half of the 4th millennium BCE, either as a result of conquest or a more gradual acculturation. But it did retain its own unique characteristics. The Uruk period levels at Susa are called Susa I from 4000 to 3700 BCE, and Susa II from 3700 to 3100 BCE, during which the site became an urban settlement. Susa I saw at the beginning of the monumental architecture on the site with the construction of a high terrace, which was increased during Susa II to measure roughly 60 by 45 meters.
And that would be, in a sense, high terrace. What they really mean is like a fortified wall or city, or a fortified wall around a temple. Or that's
okay.
Just so you know that it's to keep people out.
Right. It's a wall. Yeah. It's interesting. They decided they needed to build a wall around their site or whatever, their place.
Right. Like I said, it could even be for either religious or military reasons. Or
right.
both.
Yeah. The most interesting aspect of this site is the objects discovered there, which are the most important evidence available to us for the art of the Uruk period and the beginning of administration and writing. The cylinder seals of Susa I and Susa II have very rich iconography, uniquely emphasizing scenes of everyday life, although there is also some kind of local potentate, which P. Amiet sees as a proto-royal figure, preceding the priest-kings of late Uruk. These cylinder seals, as well as boule and clay tokens, indicate the rise of administration and of accounting techniques at Susa during the second half of the 4th millennium BCE. Susa has also yielded some of the most ancient writing tablets, making it a key site for our understanding of the origins of writing. Other sites in Susiana also have archaeological levels belonging to this period, like Jafarabad and Chogamish. Further north, in the Zaragoza, the site of Godin Tepe in the Kangavar Valley is particularly important. Level 5 of this site belongs to the Uruk period. Remains have been uncovered of an ovoid wall enclosing several buildings organized around a central court, with a large structure to the north, which might be a public building. The material culture has some traits which are shared with that of the late Uruk and Susa II. Level 5 of Godin Tepe could be interpreted as an establishment of merchants from Susa and or Lower Mesopotamia. Interested in the location of the site on commercial routes, especially those linked to the tin and lapis lazuli mines on the Iranian plateau and in Afghanistan. Further east, the key site of Tepe Sialk, near Kashan, shows no clear evidence of links with the Uruk culture in its level 3, but beveled rim bowls are found all the way out to Tepe Gabristan in the Elburz, and at some sites in Kerman, further to the southeast. In this region, the retreat of the Uruk culture resulted in a particular phenomenon, the Proto-Elamite civilization. which seems to have been centered on the region of Tel Malian, and Susiana seems to have taken over the Uruk culture's links on the Iranian plateau. Upper Mesopotamia and northern Syria. Several important sites of the Uruk period have been excavated in the middle Euphrates region during the salvage campaigns preceding the construction of the hydroelectric dams in the area. It is largely as a result of the findings of these excavations that ideas of an Uruk expansion have arisen. The best known site is Habuba Kabira, a fortified port on the right bank of the river in Syria. The city covered around 22 hectares, surrounded by a defensive wall, roughly 10% of which has been uncovered. A study of the buildings on the site shows that it was a planned settlement, which would have required significant means. The archaeological material from the site is identical to that of the Uruk, consisting of pottery, cylinder seals, bullae, accounting calculi, and numerical tablets from the end of the period. Thus, this new city had every appearance of being an Urukian colony. Around 20 residences of various sorts have been excavated. They have a tripartite plan arranged around a reception hall with a foyer opening into an internal courtyard with additional rooms arranged around it. In the south of the site is a hill, Tel Canas, which has a monumental group of several structures identified speculatively as temples on an artificial terrace. The site was abandoned at the end of the 4th millennium BCE, apparently without violence, during the period when the Uruk culture retreated. Habuba Kabira is similar in many ways to the nearby site of Jebel Aruda on a rocky outcrop only 8 kilometers further north. As at Habuba Kabira, there is an urban center made up of residences of various kinds and a central monumental complex of 2 temples. It is beyond doubt that this city too was built by Urukians. A little farther north is a third possibly Urukian colony, Sheikh Hassan, on the middle Euphrates. It is possible that these sites were part of a state implanted in the region by people from southern Mesopotamia and were developed in order to take advantage of important commercial routes.
In other words, you put your people there, and it allows you to, in a sense, dominate the region or steal resources.
Yeah, for sure. You've got the resources, and now you've got the access to trade, and you've got the way to ship it, kind of thing.
Right. Well, you ship it down the river. That's it.
Yeah. In the Khabur Valley, Tel Brak was an important urban center for the 5th millennium BC. One of the largest of the Uruk period, since it uncovered over 110 hectares at its height. Some residences from the period have been uncovered along with pottery typical of Uruk. But what has received the most attention is a succession of monuments which are definitely for cultic purposes. The Eye Temple, as its final stage is known, has walls decorated with terracotta cones which form a mosaic and with inlays of colored stones, and a platform which might have been an altar and is decorated with gold leaf, lapis lazuli, silver nails, and white marble in the central T-shaped room. The most remarkable find are over 200 eye figurines, which gave the building its name. These figurines have enormous eyes and are definitely votive deposits. Tel Brak has also produced evidence of writing. A numeric tablet with 2 pictographic tablets showing some unique features in comparison to those of southern Mesopotamia, which indicates that there is a distinct local tradition of writing. A little to the east of Tel Brak is Hamurkar, where excavations began in 1999. This vast site has provided the normal evidence found at sites under Urukian influence in Upper Mesopotamia. And as they found pottery and seals, and evidence of the existence of an important urban center in this region in the Uruk period. Like Tel Brak, Further to the east again, the site of Tel al-Hawa also shows evidence of contact with Lower Mesopotamia. On the Tigris, the site of Nineveh, or Tel Keyunjik Level 4, was located on some major commercial routes and was also within the Urukian sphere of influence. The site covered roughly 40 hectares, the whole area of Tel Keyunjik. The material remains of the period are very limited, but beveled rim bowls, an accounting bulla, and numerical tablet characteristic of the late Uruk period have been found. Nearby, Tepe Gara, which also was also important in the Ubaid period, is an important case of the changing scale of monumental architecture and of political entities between the end of the 5th millennium and the first half of the 4th millennium BC. So that's level 12 to 8. The excavations there have revealed some very rich tombs, different kinds of residences, workshops, and very large buildings with an official or religious function, notably the round structure, which may indicate that Tepe Gara was a regional political center. However, it declined before the Uruk expansion into Upper Mesopotamia. Excuse me. Some of this stuff, it makes me think of like when our civilization is in ruins and people are looking at like New York City and they'll go, okay, so this was a site where people built these type of building in this type of, it's like,
emblems of power,
Yeah, indicating that it was a financial type of place with lots of yeah. Southeast Anatolia. Several sites have been excavated in the Euphrates Valley in the southeast of Anatolia, near the region of the Urukian sites of the Middle Euphrates. Hasinebi, near modern Birisek, and Sanhurufa, was excavated by G. Stein and was located at the crossroads of some important commercial routes. Beveled rim bowls appear from the phase B1, which is 3800 to 3700 BCE, and they are also present in phase B2, 3700 to 3300 BCE, along with other objects characteristic of late Uruk, like mosaics of clay cones or a terracotta sickle, and a counting bulla imprinted with the pattern from a cylinder seal, and an uninscribed clay tablet, etc. This material coexists with local pottery, which remains dominant throughout. The excavator of the site thinks there was an enclave of people from Lower Mesopotamia who lived on the site alongside a majority of the local people. Other sites have been excavated in the region of Samsat, also in the Euphrates Valley. An Urukian site was revealed at Samsat during a hasty rescue excavation before the area was flooded as a result of the construction of a hydroelectric dam. Fragments of clay cones from a wall mosaic were found. A little to the south is Kurban Hoyuk, where clay cones and pottery characteristics of Uruk have also been found in tripartite buildings. Further to the north, the site of Arslan Tepe, located in the suburbs of Maltia, is the most recent remarkable site of the period in eastern Anatolia. It has been excavated by M. Frangipane. During the first half of the 4th millennium BC, this site was dominated by a building called Temple C by the excavators, which was built on a platform. It was abandoned around 3500 BCE or 5,522 years ago, and replaced by a monumental complex which seems to have been the regional center of power. The culture of the late Uruk had a discernible influence, which can be seen most clearly on the numerous sites found on the ceilings found on the site, many of which were in a South Mesopotamian style, around 3000 BCE or 5,022 years ago. The site was destroyed by a fire. the monuments were not restored, and the Kura Araxes culture centered on the southern Caucasus became the dominant material culture on the site. Further west, the site of the Tepesik has also revealed pottery influenced by that of Uruk, but in this period, the Urukian influence becomes increasingly ephemeral as one gets farther from Mesopotamia. The Uruk expansion. After the discovery in Syria of the sites at the Habuba Kabira and the Jebel Aruda in the 1970s, which were rapidly decided to be colonies or trading posts of the Uruk civilization settled far from their own lands, questions arose about the relationship between Lower Mesopotamia and the neighboring regions. The fact that the characteristics of the culture of the Uruk region are found across such a large territory, from northern Syria to the Iranian plateau, with Lower Mesopotamia as a clear center, led the archaeologists who studied this period to see this phenomenon as an Uruk expansion. This has been reinforced by the political situation in the modern Near East and the impossibility of excavating in Mesopotamia. Recent excavations have focused on sites outside of Mesopotamia as a periphery and with an interest in how they related to the center, which is paradoxically the region in this period which is the least well known.
And one of the reasons that it's hard, besides war and stuff, I was wanting to make a comment. One of the reasons it's hard to say do archaeology in the Middle East is because of really Islam.
Okay.
And not because of every single person who's Islam. I'm not making a blanket statement like I've heard some people, ridiculously make. First off, there's at least a few different sects of Islam that don't even agree with each other. The Sunnis and the Shiites being the major ones, and they're actually often at war. So, or at least certainly not favoring each other. Some of the, especially extremists, actually destroy archaeological evidence.
Oh, okay.
Because they feel that this is pagan stuff, and it also could be against Islam. It's unlike, say, I was pointed out is not that Christians don't destroy shit too, because they certainly have history, but they also, because they believe that finding archaeology will prove the Bible, they are more favorable to the stuff, to archaeology, where Islam takes a little different thing of it. They don't want to find anything. They rather just destroy it all because they already have their book, the Quran or whatever, in the word of
right. That they believe
they don't need anything else, and anything else is just contradictory or not important,
right,
or evil. So I'm just saying that makes it really hard when people, even in their own land, their own, in a sense, cultural background, do not want to find it out,
right,
or want to destroy it rather than dig it up and actually study it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it makes it tough, eh?
Yeah, but I'm not saying it's not like that. In other words, I'm trying to say is the Christian's reason for digging it up is religious,
right?
And a lot of times the Islamic reason to not dig it up now is also religious,
right? So. Yeah, it's funny the way that the different sides view it, right? Like you say, like the Christians, they think that they'll find evidence for the things they believe.
That's right.
So
even though that's already been proven to be false,
yeah,
including in Israel alone,
right? Yeah,
the Jewish people have not found things that prove every single thing they believe.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're more prone to secularism also, so they're more willing to do it, even though it's a different thing.
Right.
And some of the people in Judaism may not like all the stuff either.
Yeah.
But I think also, like the Muslims, in a sense, their mentality is that they already know their book is true, or if it's not, every single word is true. That the theme is true.
Right.
Which I don't understand how people come to that conclusion.
I know. Yeah,
it's wrong, but it's true.
But the book is right somehow. Just the things it says are wrong. Yeah.
But even though I'm an atheist and I don't like any of this pagan or Christian or Islam or any of this shit, I still would not destroy history because I think it's educational. So I mean,
right.
I think it's horrid. And I also, like I said, I'm not saying that every sect of Islam is out destroying shit. They're not. If that was true, more shit would be destroyed.
Right. Yeah. There'd be even less available.
So, I mean, they wouldn't have an Iraqi museum or a Saudi Arabian museum, or I mean, even Iran has some stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's more extremist, but there is a general thing, like I said, difference.
Yeah.
It seems, because the attitudes are different religiously.
Yeah.
One thinks they're going to prove the Bible if only they dug it up enough stuff. And the other one's like, we already have the Quran. We don't need to dig up shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Guillermo Algaze adopted the world systems theory of Immanuel Wallerstein and theories of international trade, elaborating the first model that sought to explain the Uruk civilization. In his view, which has met with some approval, has also found many critics. The Urukians created a collection of colonies outside Lower Mesopotamia, first in Upper Mesopotamia, Habuba Kabira and Jebel Aruda, as well as Nineveh, Tel Brak, and Samsat to the north, then in Susiana and the Iranian Plateau. For Algaze, the motivation of this activity is considered to be a form of economic imperialism. The elites of southern Mesopotamia wanted to obtain the numerous raw materials which were not available on the Tigris and Euphrates floodplains, and founded their colonies on nodal points which controlled a vast commercial network, although it remains impossible to determine what exactly was exchanged, settling them with refugees as in some models of Greek colonization. The relations between Lower Mesopotamia and the neighboring regions were thus of an asymmetric kind. The inhabitants of Lower Mesopotamia had the advantage in the interactions with neighboring regions as a result of the high productivity of their lands, which had allowed their region to take off.
Right. Which people know that Uruk, this whole thing is on, had some of the, at the time, the most inequality in the entire area,
Right.
maybe not even the whole world. I mean, they had massive inequality.
Yeah.
So when they say like this advancement of massive inequality,
Yeah.
let's remind, we certainly wouldn't say that colonialism in America or whatever was a great time, even though,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, like
maybe for elites.
the British Empire expanded, but that didn't make it good, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And they went and took raw resources from Africa and India and all kinds of other countries.
Yep.
Yeah, for their own betterment.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
they even worse, they take all these stuff, totally subjugate the people. Then later they look down on them as less than.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which had allowed the region to take off, resulting in both a comparative advantage and a competitive advantage. They had the most developed state structures and were thus able to develop long-distance commercial links, exercise influence over their neighbors, and perhaps engage in military conquest.
Yeah, not perhaps.
Yeah. No, they did.
Because everybody would come in their area and steal all their resources.
Right. Yeah. Algaze's theory, like other alternative models, has been criticized, particularly because a solid model remains difficult to demonstrate, while the Uruk civilization remains poorly known in Lower Mesopotamia, aside from the two monumental complexes that have been excavated at Uruk itself. We are therefore poorly placed to evaluate the impact of the development of southern Mesopotamia, since we have almost no archaeological evidence about it. Moreover, the chronology of this period is far from established, which makes it difficult to date the expansion. It has proven difficult to make the levels at different sites correspond closely enough to attribute them to a single period. Making the elaboration of relative chronology very complicated.
Or as Cory would say, and inspires skepticism.
Yeah, that's right.
And I would say, rationally, that is justifiable skepticism. That's why I said, even though some stuff looks like colonies, maybe
it's hard to say for sure.
But certainly, and another thing, like I said about Egypt too, it doesn't mean that they didn't see these oppression ideas and go, hey, that's a great model.
Right.
And just in a sense, copy that theme of it.
Yeah, for sure. Among the theories that have been advanced to explain the Uruk expansion, the commercial explanation is frequently revived. However, although long-distance trade is undoubtedly a secondary phenomenon for the South Mesopotamian states compared to local production, and seems to follow the development of increased social complexity rather than causing it, this does not necessarily prove a process of colonization. Some other theories propose a form of agrarian colonization resulting from a shortage of land in lower Mesopotamia or a migration of refugees after the Uruk region suffered ecological or political upheavals. These explanations...
They had both.
Yeah.
Or all the above.
These explanations are largely advanced to explain the sites of the Syro-Anatolian world rather than as global theories. Other explanations avoid political and economic factors in order to focus on the Uruk expansions as a long-term cultural phenomenon using concepts of coin, acculturation, hybridity, and cultural emulation to emphasize their differentiation according to the cultural regions and sites in question. P. Butterlin has proposed that the links tying southern Mesopotamia to its neighbors in this period should be seen as a world culture rather than as an economic world system, in which the Uruk region provided a model to its neighbors, each of which took up more adaptable elements in their own way and retained some local traits essentially unchanged. This is intended to explain the different degrees of influence or acculturation. In effect, the impact of Uruk is generally distinguished in specific sites and regions, which has led to the development of multiple typologies of material considered to be characteristic of the Uruk culture, especially the pottery and beveled rim bowls. It has been possible to identify multiple types of site, ranging from colonies that could be actual Urukian sites through to trading posts with an Urukian enclave, and sites that are mostly local with a weak or non-existent Urukian influence, as well as others where contacts were more or less strong without supplanting the local culture. The case of Susiana and the Iranian Plateau, which is generally studied by different scholars from those who work on Syrian and Anatolian sites, has led to some attempted explanations based on local developments, notably the development of the Proto-Elamite culture, which is sometimes seen as a product of the expansion and sometimes as an adversary. The case of the southern Levant and Egypt is different again and helps to highlight the role of the local cultures as receivers of the Uruk culture. In the Levant, there was no stratified society with embryonic cities and bureaucracy, and therefore no strong elite to act as local intermediaries of Urukian culture, and as a result, Urukian influence is especially weak. In Egypt, Urukian influence seems to be limited to a few objects which were seen as prestigious or exotic, most notably the knife of Jebel el Iraq, chosen by the elite at a moment when they needed to assert their power in a developing state. It might be added that an interpretation of the relations of this period as center-periphery interaction, although often relevant in the period, risks prejudicing researchers to see decisions in an asymmetric or diffusionist fashion, and this needs to be nuanced. Thus, it increasingly appears that the regions neighboring Lower Mesopotamia did not wait for the Urukians in order to begin an advanced process of increasing social complexity or urbanization, as the example of the large site of Tel Brak in Syria shows, which encourages us to imagine the phenomenon from a more symmetrical angle. And then we're on to Egypt-Mesopotamia relations. Egypt-Mesopotamia relations seem to have developed from the 4th millennium BCE, starting in the Uruk period for Mesopotamia and in the pre-literate Gurzian culture or for prehistoric Egypt, circa 3500 BCE to 3200 BCE. Influences can be seen in the visual arts of Egypt, in imported products, and also in the possible transfer of writing from Mesopotamia to Egypt, and generated deep-seated parallels in the early stages of both cultures. War in ancient Mesopotamia. If we decided to go back into a time period such as ancient Mesopotamia, the time period from around 2900 to 2200 BCE, war was an enormous part of daily life in ancient Mesopotamia. Much of the artifacts left behind from this period are war-related. Nearly every civilization and king of the time believed in expansionism, which they justified by saying they were commanded by the gods to conquer cities or the gods to gave them cities.
You're like, wait a minute, isn't that what America did? Manifest destiny?
Uh-huh. Yeah. God blessed this land.
Yeah.
So, this was a way of life, conquering and avoiding being conquered. It is easy to deduce these ideas from written accounts, the iconography, and the excavated weaponry from Akkad and Sumer. Each Sumerian city became a city-state, independent of the others and protective of its independence. At times, one city would try to conquer and unify the region, but such efforts were resisted and failed for centuries. As a result, the political history of Sumer is one of almost constant warfare. The Mesopotamians believed their kings and queens were descended from the city of gods, but unlike the ancient Mesopotamians, they never believed their kings were real gods. Most kings named themselves King of the Universe or Great King. Another common name was Shepherd. As kings wanted to be seen as protectors of the city, they are said to look after, but likely just a way of a politician getting people on their side to control them, like in statism, where groups of underlings accept their oppression identity of being their people. And that is the end of our script.
Like, oh yeah, relate to that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you can see that, like I said, people act as if statism started out great. It didn't. And then, later became some oppressive thing by some despot. Wrong. It was always that way.
Yeah. It's just one of those things like when you have rulers, you have oppressed people. That's it.
Yeah. Anarchism tells you that you should not want that, or that's not a good thing.
That's right.
How did you feel after reading and learning some of that?
Some of it's really interesting. It's a bit of a slog though, right? Like it's a lot of detail, a lot of stuff to get through, but no, I think it's good. It's good to have a bit of a background on like the first city state kind of thing.
Right. And like I said, also you can see that it's not as simple as sometimes people try to portray it.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of theories about how what this means and what these things are doing and what's going on. So
and those reasons why that they can be accepted is possible, even because this goes back to like what makes something justified. You have this evidence, but evidence of what exactly?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, sometimes people forget they'll say that because Christians are like, we have evidence. Like, yeah, but evidence of what?
Right.
They conflate a limited evidence with some gigantic conclusion. Like, whoa, that doesn't support that.
Right. Yeah. The thing that really caught my eye here was just in this last bit where the one guy, he kind of believes that the expansion of Urukian culture was a result of, say, imperialism and expansionism and like a colonialism of sorts.
Yeah.
And but also then other people are like, well, no, that ain't it. It's just natural cultural expansion because people come and trade and whatnot. And you go, well, okay, but there's a possibility that all of these explanations are partially true, right?
Well, that's what I've said before is I feel like sometimes people, it's an all or nothing, like a black and white fallacy. Like I was saying about, capitalism. People want to say it didn't happen, even though the elements are all over the place. They're like,
right.
Oh yeah, no. Workers? Oh yeah, no. Yeah. They took taxes and they had minimum wages. And, oh no, but that's not nothing. It nothing to do with capitalism.
Right. That sounds like capitalism.
Like, oh, they had workers that made all these utilitarian mass production. Oh yeah, mass production and with a wage and they're getting taxed. Yeah, didn't have the means of production. Oh, that's not capitalism, though.
Right, eh?
So, but I think it's this all because but they also had slaves back then. Yeah, and they had workers too, and merchants and elites, and like it's not that. That's the biggest thing. Even though I know it's some of this boring in a sense or whatever, the details.
It's just heavy. Like it's a lot of stuff.
But the point that I really want to get is that it is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
These simple conclusions or these simple thinkings are often, like I was saying, yeah, like or how about like this? Yes, it is this one thing. It is, say, slavery, but it's also colonialism, and it's also,
Right.
To me, proto-capitalism, arcane capitalism, where you have these workers slaving away, making stuff for an elite. Whether you want to call it an elite state, okay, state capitalism,
Right. Yeah.
proto-state capitalism, whatever. My point is that that's why I was saying before that it's not that I think that other people are like lying or whatever. They don't have all these boring ass facts and stuff. And so it's easier to go, well, it looks like this, and just assume that, well, it has to be this.
Right. Right.
And I'm more with you. I really think it's probably a little bit of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it makes sense that Uruk like placed these colonies in various, or like colony small communities in places where they would help them economically. That makes perfect sense. And it also makes perfect sense that trade and whatnot would expand their culture into neighboring regions, right? Like,
Exactly. And so you have a multiple of things. Like I said, though, just because people move around, we don't always know why that happened. But I do agree that the simplistic one does everything, like E equals MC square, sort of a math equation, like some kind of simplified.
right.
That's because people like simple answers, not because the answers are actually simple.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There was this.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there was one part there where they talk about enclaves, small enclaves within a region where you can tell like it was just this group was Urukians, and the local people were still themselves. And I'm thinking, well, that's an embassy, right? Like that's just, they're there to represent their community, to supposedly trade and help people,
And that's why I said too that I think some of it is influence. Like you come up and you're doing all these things, and the people that never did that before now have an opportunity to see this new way of doing things.
Yeah.
And then the local chieftain's like, hell, that's a great idea. Priest king, holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, I could have people do all this shit for me. I could just sit on my ass all fucking day. Oh shit.
Like often we think of like ancient humans as like simple, right?
Yeah, right.
When our brains actually haven't evolved that much differently. Like we're not that much smarter than ancient Urukians.
Oh no, we're actually exactly the same.
So
I can't remember exactly, but I think it's the last 12,000 years or 10,000 years. There's like been zero or next to zero.
So
like
then how?
Change.
So then of course they came up with ideas like those ideas we have in the modern age. That it's the same concepts. It's the same thing.
Right. And well, that's what I would say too. I don't like how sometimes they're portrayed altruistically.
Right.
Like, oh, well, they were really good people, even though they tortured and did this stuff, and everybody did that. Yeah, that doesn't make that. No.
No, they had brains like we have.
Yeah.
They knew that was wrong.
And if they didn't, then they're not thinking ethically. And I could say that, period.
Yeah,
I don't have to caveat that with, well, but they all were unethical, so they didn't know.
No, that's right.
Now, you always knew that oppression was wrong. Just for the fact that people would fight back should tell you that oppression's not something people like.
Is it a thing you want them to do to you?
There you go. Done.
Like, okay.
Well, I told you that there's that one Sumerian verse that goes, that which is conquered or something or oppressed, will seek to revolt or whatever.
Right. Of course.
They knew. They knew.
Yeah.
That's not new. People don't like to be oppressed. I don't know. What a crazy thought.
Go figure. Yeah. And people have never liked to be oppressed. So, so the emergence of the state and the dominance and inequality, it was all bad at that time too. It wasn't like just the state of nature, right?
Right. But as you see, that's why I think it's important about the shepherd thing. Just like I said, like the Democrats, they want to be seen as glorious. They produced this bill or someone, Trudeau or whatever, different, heads of state, they want to be seen as these glorious people that are, shepherds for their people. They're just trying to help us out as they're billionaires and living off of us. Oh, but
Yep.
like, yeah, you know what good people do? Here's a newsflash: good things. So yeah, handing out these pansy ass not good things or barely any kind of good at all. I mean, what? Come on, there's people starving in the streets. You can't solve that problem.
Yeah, that's
Shut
right.
the fuck up. And billions of dollars for war. We always like to say, oh, we're helping the Ukrainian people by sending billions of dollars. Yeah, I'm not against helping people. But why is the only kind of help we like to give is war?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's plenty of people starving.
Yep.
We didn't have no fucking problem them starving then or now.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's to me, it's disgusting.
That's
the same thing with this war shit. It is no different than Samaria. You look at civilization. You mean war?
Right.
Conquering elites? Imperialism?
We haven't yet reached civilization, if that's what we're calling civilization. We're not there yet.
No, so I think it's important because, as you saw, even reading it, even when they tried to present it as you would think as just factual, but they still throw in these opinions that shit was good.
Yeah.
Which is their opinion.
Right. Yeah. Which is, it's fine if we can recognize it and we don't just accept it as a fact, right?
Well, that's why I felt we need to do the videos.
Yeah, that's right.
I watched them.
Too often it is accepted as a fact.
Wow. Like, yeah, it's a natural course things, and it was good. In fact, we should all thank them.
Right, eh? No, I don't think so. But
yeah, and so that's why the same thing. I don't try to be an anarchist that goes out there and smashes everybody in the head with anarchism. I try to show the beauty of anarchism. How could you not want to support it? Show the ethicalness. How could it be right to feel like you're better than other people? That some people deserve to eat and others don't. What?
Right, eh?
The fact that we could have people that are opulent with gold toilets and yet people can't even afford to have a shelter? And we call that advance?
Yeah, that's right. Like, people often use the phrase a society descends into anarchy because of chaos or whatnot. And I think that it's more accurate to say that we strive for anarchy. We ought to be lifting ourselves into anarchy for our betterment of everybody.
To me, it's ethical. That's why when people say, well, I used to be an anarchist, I'm like, so you're not ethical now?
Like you gave up being good.
I'm sorry. It wasn't like I chose anarchy, like, oh, I think I would like to have this. Because I heard someone say, well, I was abused. And so not saying there's anything wrong with that coming from that place, because I don't think there's anything wrong with how you realize anarchy is right.
True. Yeah.
It's like I said, whether you got it from a video, I just got it out of my head because I looked around and said, man, this shit's fucked up. How is this okay? And they kept saying, well, that's anarchy. What you think? Oh, okay. Or someone saying I was, abused. And so I didn't want people to abuse. And I see that as an inspiration for my anarchy. I heard someone say something like that. I'm not saying that. That's all valid. To me, if you come to the ethics, how you get there.
Right. Yeah, that's right. If you're behaving in a good and ethical way.
Right. That's why I always tell people I really support people being good people. One of the reasons I say that is not because I believe everyone that thinks they're a good person is actually a good person.
Right.
But when I say this, it puts a responsibility on them. Isn't this what our goal is? Yeah. Because I see some people have what they call anarchy, and it sounds like they're just fucking assholes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's what I said before. That's not me. If you're an anti-axiology where you're not trying to do good in the world and benefit everybody, I mean, what are you doing? I don't. Because there's one person I saw that said that the anarchy does not for them equal order. It's disorder. And
well, that's just wrong.
I would completely agree. What are you talking about? Because, and then I would probably have to ask them more questions but it sounds like just selfish. Like it was an ego anarchist. Which to me, I mean, how are you putting those two things together? The whole point of, in a sense, of anarchism is the humbleness to me that we're all equal. That should remove some of this ego bullshit.
Yeah, there is a strain of anarchism that I'm currently just learning about. Like, I didn't really realize this was a thing. That is very individualistic in the same sense that capitalists are, but like, so it's very focused on the I don't want to be dominated, therefore I'm an anarchist and I don't care what happens to anybody else. Almost like it's very weird to me.
I don't relate to that at all.
No,
my anarchism, like I said, is really ethical. It's realizing, wow, we all matter.
Yeah, exactly.
If we all matter, then how is someone else pushing themselves as mattering more? And how do you also then at the same time push people down and say they don't matter at all or less? Like,
no, that's right.
I find that to be, like I said, that's why I just say I'm an anti-classist also, because and it doesn't just mean like middle class and whatever. I mean in general, it's this negative behavior of tribalism, I feel, where we say that this class of people, let's just say even the people are capitalists or whatever,
right?
We can then hurt capitalists and kill them and do whatever we want, torture them.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Whoa, I don't fucking feel that way.
That's not. I feel much more like the guys from the Seriously Wrong podcast. They had a tweet a while back that was like, you know what you're gonna get if you're my enemy? You're gonna get a house to live in. You're gonna get food on your table. You get the same as everybody else that agrees with me. Like,
and see that's the same thing. Like I say about my opinion about removing prisons and then putting something else in its place. When I say that I think that everything should be geared towards mental health, someone mistakenly, once again, they put up with words on my mouth. I'm not saying we pathologize, every single crime. I'm saying if you had a problem with your kid, even if it's not pathological, would having someone, mental health professional talking to them and asking them and working with you together, would that not be better? Yes. Well,
believe it or not,
what I'm talking about. I'm not
believe it or not, having a counselor work through things with you is helpful.
Right. So what I'm saying is that when people I see crime in a sense as an imbalance, just like the thinking that your ego, that you're better or whatever, it's an imbalance. It's not a good state of being, even if it's your personal state of being.
Right.
There's ways of interacting with other people that's more, equalitarian. And why that's important, because then all of us are taken care of.
Yeah, that's right.
And to me, like I said, that's just ethical. That's why I cannot, for myself, even like I was telling you before, that even if I agreed with someone, Marxist, Leninist, whatever, they think it's a middle stage between getting to, in a sense, full communism or anarchism.
Because full communism is anarchism.
So, I mean, basically, but my point is, so even if they saw that, like I told you before, how are you pushing your ethics that the state is what's ethical? Isn't what's ethical the goal?
Yeah.
And so that's what I was saying. To me, I could never agree with that, because it sounds like you guys are worshiping the state and you hope that one day the state will be so great you don't need it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It sounds like exactly like that.
But like I said, okay, even if it was, how can you lose that the goal is this equality removed from elite period?
Yeah, that's right.
So to me, that, like I said, if that's not your goal, I don't know what you're really fighting for.
Yeah.
Even if you call it communism, it obviously can't be that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't usually use the word communism, just because the one big reason I told you, because I don't believe in this state of no money. For me personally, because it's about value. Money is like, could be, time, could be place, could be thing, could be, quantity of something. I think it's, to me, because if I said, what's the problem with money? Say it's an inequality that's going on, or whatever, a hoarding, or a unequal distribution. So then really the problem is the unequal distribution, not the means of distributing.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair.
So that's all. But it's not that I disagree. Most of the stuff I'm agree with. and I don't think that, like I said before, that even say the word communism has to be distinctly only one sort of a thing. But I think that if you're having a hierarchy thing and you're having an unequal balance, I don't know how that you can call it that.
Yeah, no.
Because I think that, to me, that's one of the biggest things. That's why I really hate also when the right constantly calls Democrats far, socialist or communist or Marxist. Right. I'm like, what?
Despite the fact that it's just not true, it's also very frustrating because you're using different terms. Like they're using the wrong words to mean these things. And yeah,
they're literally just like you.
Yeah.
The only thing is they're just a little bit more kind to people. Not much, but a little bit more. That literally is it. I mean,
yeah.
They're not even centrist, most of them. You're calling them far leftists, and I'm like, even the people that call themselves progressives are generally like just close to center.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not even like left, and you're like, oh, left-wing radicals. Even the Democrats will call other Democrats left-wing radicals. No.
Yeah, they want the center-right Democrats are calling the slightly progressive left Democrats far left radicals.
Yeah,
they're not changing. Like the term radical means people who want to change society, change the whole thing. Like, but there's none of those in the Democratic Party. If they were radicals, they wouldn't be in the Democratic Party.
Well, and if they were radicals, I would be loving to go vote for them.
Well, yeah, that's right. Like that would be amazing.
Not because I'm a pro-voting, or like I told you, it's more because I realize I want a little bit more ecumenical society, and if we can do that, I'm pro that. Of course, like I said, my goal would never be that in itself. Once again, just like Marxist Leninists, it'll be a stage, and we need to get this shit better.
Yeah.
But if you're going to say we can make it better now, okay, great, and then let's work
let's do that
even better.
Yeah.
But like I told you about, like reactionary, with when I said that about a lot of people that call themselves new atheists, they don't really want society that much better. They want basically status quo.
Yeah,
no, they want religion involved in it. That's all.
That's right. Yeah. We want everything exactly as it is, but no church. That's what we want.
Right. Like, yeah.
I don't know how that's different.
And like I said, what's one of the reasons why I think I don't do as good, and I have people that will first come on, oh, he's great, and then, oh, what? Gone.
Yeah.
Can lose as many people as I can gain, in a sense, because it's really not this progressive movement that they want it to be. I mean, I thought it was a self-help thing.
Right.
So I thought we were, helping each other. No, it's more like capitalism and book sales.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a cult of personality, right?
Oh,
like it's
big
time. Worship this guy, not God.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just harmful, especially when they come up with harmful ideas, and you're like, well, I still like this guy. Like, yeah, this guy's terrible. Yeah, but
that's right.
Who doesn't like God? I'm like, okay, either do I. Does that make you like me more? I mean,
yeah. But I'm also not transphobic, so that.
Well, and there's a lot, but that goes back to they're not really progressives. That's why I said they're.
That's right.
And what's even crazier is they call us regressive left.
I know, right? Yeah, like they absolutely have no idea what they're talking about.
Literally, do not know you guys are the regressive right. How's that?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
That's the real fact. The reason you don't like trans people and you don't like, wokeness and feminism and whatever else, feeding the poor.
Yep. That's
whatever else, ending capitalism, because they think, oh, Marx is crazy person. Yeah, you're the regressive. Or like I said, you're the reactionary. You want
the reactionary. Exactly.
You don't want it to become progressive, which is what I absolutely demand. Yep. That it become progressive. We should care about trans people because they are people.
Yep.
And intersex people that everyone wants to deny that they exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is why I think in general, it's statism involves us begging these people to care about the littlest issues, and they still fucking don't.
Yeah. Well, and that is what it is, right? That's in its best form right now. Like democracy as we know it is people begging people with power to care about the most important issues in their lives.
And then we're supposed to thank them for doing almost nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're supposed to send them our money. We're supposed to vote for them every 4 years. Like, We're supposed to worship them
Yeah.
as
They do worship
leaders.
them. Oh, they do.
Oh, and they do. I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
have you seen this stuff about Dark Brandon or whatever?
Oh,
The Democrats with Biden. Like, Biden
Yeah.
is a centrist that does practically nothing. And you're like, oh, he's kicking ass, and they're making him like he's a superhero. I'm like, that shit's what Trump did. I mean,
yeah. You're almost as delusional as Trump supporters. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just,
dude, why are you worshiping anyone?
No.
Seriously, it's disgusting to me. I mean, and then they go, he's the best we have. Like, no, he literally is not.
He's really
even in the
not.
Democratic Party, he literally is not.
Like, you could have actually had somebody who was more on the progressive side. Like, Bernie Sanders is not a radical leftist. He's a more progressive person, though. And
he literally is a centrist.
Yeah.
On a political chart, he literally is a centrist.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just barely past
slightly to the left. Yeah. Just slightly.
But I think that's what's so toxic too about history. When you teach it in the same way, where you're worshiping leaders, these great powerful things.
The great man, and
they gave us They gave us language. Like language was taxes. Did you really think that taxes is so fucking great? Especially when it was feeding the elites first, and then only afterwards. Well, kind of like now,
right?
Really?
Yeah.
So I don't see how it's. That's why I said it's important to grasp that it's not really different. It's not really that some. Yes, when they started, they were very similar to now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you centralize power like that, and then you give these elite undue, influence and power, it's fucking terrible.
Yeah, that's right. I'm reading this. I'm listening to this audiobook series, and there's like one section of it is about a battle for succession of this throne, right? And the whole time I'm going through that section, I'm thinking, so these people are just dying in war to put you on a throne, and you're just going to sit there in a palace while they still have to figure out the rest of their lives if they survive your war. Like, this is just a nonsense idea, and that's how society ran in many ways, right?
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, when he said religion is a big part, it was definitely a big part.
Yeah.
It allows you to control people. That's why I said, to me, definitely after 5,000, religion was absolutely used to control people. Not that it wasn't mildly controlling them before that, but that's when religion got a military. It got statism. It got war. I mean, it got a power to influence. Just like a lot of the Christian and Muslims, they're sort of the biggest thing, not because they were the greatest idea, not because they had the facts on their side, but they had the fucking greatest armies.
Yep.
And a lot of times
they had men who would die.
Yeah, men who would die, and then they would say that if you don't convert, we will kill you. In fact, one of these times we're going to do a whole thing on all the convert or die stuff. There's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's important to understand these are not the great. Everyone chose these ideas. No, they fucking didn't.
They were forced on them.
Yeah. Just like a colonization or whatever. So you're like worshiping the colonizers.
Yep.
And which is so crazy, because even people that are of these religions will say colonization is bad. What do you think your religion has done? Seriously.
Yeah.
It's a fucking evil itself because of what it's done. But it's one guy when he tried to say that, which I ended up making a blog, because he goes, I wish that women deities were back. I'm like, well, women deities were used for war too.
Yeah.
And he's like,
it's not actually going to improve things.
He goes, well, they're better. I'm like, some of their aspects were probably more Tulare and better, but that still didn't equal good. And here's a newsflash: all deities practically have been, could be, and will be used for the whims of the people that are using them.
Yeah,
because they're beneficial to have people do shit that doesn't make sense, like harm innocent fucking people.
Yeah, send people off to fight in battles that are bad.
Well, a lot of times the battles are to glorify, say a state or a thing, but even that state or a thing believes they're glorified, like say America, because of God.
Yeah.
So when they say, it's not directly related to religion, no, not always. but religion generally has its fucking fingers in there.
But like I've heard lots of interviews with atheists who were in the military in the United States anyway, and there was still like there's Sunday service that you have to go to. You're you're basically forced into this religious army. It just happens to be the army that represents the United States as well, right?
Right, and the United States supposedly represents, our money says,
Yeah.
In God we trust. I mean, it's not like it's a choice.
Right.
It's disgusting, and that's the whole point in general, though, is that these religions are able to be hijacked by people, and they definitely desire to be because they want to spread it.
Yeah,
and so
yeah, this is the thing. Like, obviously I don't want religion to be deciding things for the people in my society, and we currently exist in a state. So I'm pro church and state. Separation. Yeah.
I was like, I don't think you meant what you just said.
No, I'm pro church and state separation, but I don't really think that you can get away from a church and state being intermingled in some way as long as you still have a state. It's just really hard for me to see them truly being separated in the same way that I don't see like the state is still tied to capitalism, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they're like the fire triangle of oppression. Like,
well, even ones that call themselves communist states are often a weird form of either mixed economy or state capitalism almost.
Yeah, that's right.
So I agree with you. The state needs capitalism to keep itself. But like I said, it's very simple. Do they glorify the state? To me, if they're doing that, how the hell are they communist?
Yeah,
you say, well, the communist state is doing good things. That's not communism. The goal is not the state.
Yeah. The idea isn't that the state does good things. The idea is
right. Which is what the right wing thinks, that whenever you do a little bit good, you're a socialist. You do a lot more good, then you're a communist. Like, that's not literally what it means. Not that the people because to me it goes back to ethics. People with those ideas, they're communists, socialists, anarchists. They should be wanting to help people. I mean,
right.
Otherwise, then you aren't those things.
Yeah. And that ties, like, I mean, we're kind of going pretty long, I guess, after the show or after the main part, but it goes back to the, like, seeing people who are quote unquote communists or leftists who are anti-sex work or who are like pro criminalization of drugs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, you can't eliminate drugs from your society by punishing the people who are doing them, right? By having any kind of criminalization on that sort of stuff. And
I think that also it's completely wrong anyways. To me, like I told you, simple ethics for me is people own their own body.
Yeah, that's right.
Real simple. People own their body. Can they have sex? Do they not own their own body? Yes. Okay.
Do they want to exchange money for it? That's none of your goddamn business.
Is it their body? Shut the fuck up. Abortion. Is it their body? Shut the fuck up. I mean, to me, it shouldn't be no laws against other people's bodies. So they want to do drugs, they want to kill themselves. Is it their body? Yeah. That doesn't mean that I think that we shouldn't have desire for mental health facilities. And places that people can go so they don't kill themselves. Or that they don't have to do prostitution if they feel that's some need to live.
So it's not like we want to eliminate the system that's exploiting them so that they feel forced into that.
There you go.
Right.
They're about their own rights back. But also, I think that if people have their needs met, there still will be prostitution. Hey, some people just like to have sex. Newsflash.
It's just the way that some people will.
Doesn't make them ethically wrong if they want to get high.
No, that's
right.
To
me, as long as you're not harming everybody else, I don't really care if you get high on any kind of whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, the problem should be is when there's a imbalance in your behavior to where you're hurting other people. Because guess what? They also have their rights.
Yep. Exactly. Which is where, like, I think that's kind of the nexus. Like, that's where you can see where individual anarchism and like communal or collectivist anarchism can meet, right? Like, where's like my rights and your rights, we have the same rights. So
Right.
I can do whatever I want with my body until I'm impacting you negatively,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But most of the time, the state makes laws and then tries to act as if they're ethical. They're not.
No.
And like I said, they're violating, rights all over the place, and then they call it freedom. What? How can it be freedom if you violate my rights to my body? It's obviously not freedom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's just like the same thing that sometimes we can sound the same. Like I can sound the same as Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says defund the FBI, and I'm like,
the one time she's right about
I kind of agree with that point, but not for the reason that you've stated.
Yeah, the one time she's right about anything.
I'm like, yeah, because they've been harmful to society, not because what you say. They've offended Donald Trump. I mean,
right.
the guy's
Marjorie
a grifter
Taylor
and
Greene
a
is like,
con man.
yeah, like Marjorie Taylor Greene is like not a stopped clock who's right twice a day or whatever. She's like a clock that's slightly moving all the time, so it stays always wrong until this one time where it happened to find the right time.
But that's where I think some people can also that are on the regressive right. They call me the regressive left.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you sound like a rightist. I'm like, oh yeah, the one time.
Well, because they're pro-cop, right? Because that's the thing. They're reactionaries who think that we need police still. It's
definitely
so.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is they think that, but yet we don't need community centers so that kids have things to do not to have crime,
right?
And that we don't criminalize things that never should have been.
Right, but that costs money, right? Like providing resources costs money. Having police somehow doesn't.
Cost money? Literally, shitloads of money.
Living in a police state is free, right? That's no.
No. So I mean, if you look at it, I would probably seem a lot more like a Democrat than a Republican. But I'm not saying that sometimes I don't disagree with Democrats and would agree with a Republican, but it's not on an ethical thing.
Yeah.
Because like you said, once in a while they say something, I'm like, okay, it's actually a good idea.
Yeah, accidentally you said the right thing this time.
But no, I don't agree with you. Clarify that.
Yeah. I would buy one of those defund the FBI hats if it wasn't for money going to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Really? Yeah. So, but anyways, that's why I think it's once again, just like learning culture, it's nuanced. Understanding an anarchist is nuanced because a lot of times it certainly seems like people bastardize what we are, what we think.
Yeah.
And then they just jump on one thing we agree with or don't agree with and think that somehow that explains every fucking thing.
Yeah.
No. So, like I said, that's why I want to talk, a little bit before or after, because I do want to explain more than just fucking history.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to put it in context.
You see all that stuff we did before? We're applying that to other things.
Right. So because the whole point is that I'm revolutionary. I want people to fucking change society.
Yeah.
I don't want to just barely fix anything and think this is okay. Yeah. No. But I think that a great way to do that for me personally is by teaching, by learning real facts, because then you feel more grounded in what you're thinking. It's not reactionary or, not what they think is radical just because I want to be different or something. No, I legitimately think that this is the ethical way to be socialist or communist and anarchist. This is not a
no, that's right. It's not I get a lot of people who think that the flag in the background or like calling myself an anarchist, like I'm doing this for an aesthetic type of thing.
Yeah, no.
Or like I'm just putting on a show of being an anarchist when really I'm just a status quo guy. And no, I'm sorry. I mean, you don't know. You haven't been listening to me for very long, if that's what you think. But I'm not in favor of society staying the way it is. That's why I'm an anarchist.
Oh, hell no. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, like I said, to me, it's just unethical. I couldn't, even if I wanted to, I'd be like, no, because I want to do what's ethical, and that can't be this. Yeah, this is not an ethical way to run anything. This is not civilized. To me, starving children is just not like those people that we're for human rights, so we don't want abortion. Yeah, okay. So then you're gonna open up all kinds of places where kids can get free everything. Like, no. Well, they shut up about this care about human life crap.
Yeah.
Or they only care about human life in America. Any other life,
Right.
once again, it's
That
not
shit makes me
really
crazy too.
Oh, God cares about every life. So why aren't you sending tons of money to all these poor nations? You have no problem sending money to war, but
Yeah, that's right.
Poor nations, fuck them, right?
Yeah.
Or give some, or a lot of the money we give, because we do give, America gives all kinds of money, but generally we give money to Israel. Why? Oh, to support their military. Not even because we want it.
Not to feed the people in the streets, to support the military.
Yeah, so it's not. It's a lie. It's not really a great thing. It's not, and we don't use. And like I said, they try to use religious. You're not really doing it because you think your God cares about every kid.
No.
That's just quit lying.
Yeah, that's right.
And I do care about every kid. It does bother me that the hell that anywhere on this planet there's a human being that is suffering for food. Period.
Yep.
Care about borders and states and dumb crap that people draw on maps and think that
that's
means something.
Right. I actually don't think that borders should be a thing. So
borders, Well, borders tell you only have to care about these people.
Yeah.
And you don't have to care about these other people. These other humans.
Exactly.
And the only thing is that there's a damn line. It's just stupid and ridiculous. But anyways, we can go ahead and wrap it up and split the video for me again.
I will.
But I really appreciate your time, and I thank you for doing this. I think that it can be like you said, hard to go through, but it is important, because the only way you're going to feel like someone's skeptical like you, they're going to feel confident that this is a very in-depth process, is reading that it's an in-depth process.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, go ahead and tell us about your show or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I'm back in business. I'm the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist is on YouTube. I recently reached 500 subscribers.
Great.
So I'm doing a live stream on Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So I guess that'd be 9 EST if people want to tune in. My Twitter is @SkepticalLefty. And that's it.
On. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you. There.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist, with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.